main character appears to become somewhat familiar with the magical earth. The ending uses the bricks he made. Linked to his mana, the inn lets him use his memory storage magic there. Therefore, he must be enabled. The experiment to recreate the end succeeded. The MC realizes he cannot move and remembers nothing. He begins to cry. A woman arrives and he wonders if he was in an accident. She asks whether he is hungry. The boy wonders if she is a nurse, which can only mean he is in the hospital. The little girl taps into the power of light. That terrifies the baby. It seems he has been reincarnated into another world. That world is not the one he knows, so his only option is a world where magic exists. The woman offers to nurse the boy. The baby realizes his body does not respond to him. Magic appears to exist there, and that beautiful woman is his mother. Being reborn in a new world is the best. Now a baby, he has begun a new life and still has no name. People only call him Mary's son and other names. A naming ceremony is planned for his 6th birthday. Being called the third son makes the MC uneasy. What amazes him most about that world so far is its magic. To his knowledge, that room has no source of light. Most likely the people there use magic to make light. Magic is part of everyday life. That lets him use magic too. Imagining fire, wind, water, and ice excites the boy. He tries to reach out and cast the illumination spell. Nothing happens. The MC tosses and turns in bed until frustration builds and he begins to cry. Mary, his mother, picks him up and asks what is happening. He realizes he must change his approach. First, watch how his family uses magic and learn from them. His mother notices he is awake. She raises her index finger, closes her eyes, and something shines until she calls for the light. They somehow channel energy from their bodies. Mary finds it amusing that the MC won't stop grumbling. His vocal cords aren't developed enough to cast spells yet, so he must first find his mana source and begin training. From then on, he trained his mana every day for the last 3 years. He still cannot use magic while starving. As poor farmers, they face constant hunger. At only 3 years old, poverty is already damaging his health. After that, he will have to search for food. 2 types of mana exist. One is inside his body, and the other surrounds people. External mana can be absorbed through the mouth. After learning this, he began gathering all the mana into his abdomen. He could then control and spread it throughout his body. Because of that, he can now refine it. Even so, he must be at least 6 to take part in the naming ceremony, and only then can he use magic. That means he can only use simple everyday magic, like making light or creating water. His parents can only use this kind of magic and nothing else. Ever since he was a baby, he has been trying every day to use magic. At last he received some positive feedback. The boy inhales deeply. Gathering the mana in his stomach, he refines it. Bringing it to his chest, he lets it flow through his limbs. When the man reaches the edge of his body, he should extend his hand to it and slowly bring it back. Make the mana circulate through his body. Airborne mana looks like a gas, while inside their bodies it looks more like a liquid. Mana swells in his palms and pours out onto the ground. The MC realizes he must slow down and stay focused. He stopped there last time. The man he had worked so hard on was dispersed. When you train your mana, the mental image is very important. Soft and tender, the soil feels moist and rich in nutrients. In his past life, his grandmother in the countryside used something to fertilize the soil. Clearing weeds and cultivating the soil properly lets the field drain well and receive sunlight. The boy's heart starts to race. He feels the ground beneath him. Then he begins to sweat. All the soil in front of him suddenly becomes perfect. He's impressed that he did it and takes a handful of dirt in his hands. Each plot is about 10 square meters. Terrain can vary. They are farmers, but the soil on their land is hard and overrun with weeds, the worst possible situation. Local agricultural machinery is primitive and falls far short of what he had in his previous world. Yet he did it with simple magic. It was still the first time since his birth that he had managed to use it. This is his first step into the new world. His stomach suddenly growls. Using magic makes someone hungry. The little boy decides to start planting. He plants a root that will be ready to eat in 20 days. This is the standard feed for poor farmers, low-quality vegetables that look terrible and taste awful. Despite the root's terrible reputation, the boy doesn't care because he needs to eat. A young boy works hard carrying water and digging in the dirt. After much effort, he manages to grow everything he needed, but it's still a lot of work for a 3-year-old child. 5 days have passed since he successfully used his magic. Each day he works his magic on the soil, and now part of the land has become soft earth. Even flowers are sprouting. These flowers show the soil is good, but it's only been 5 days, and this usually takes 20. It's clearly going too fast, and that's not normal, but the boy can't do anything about it. The little boy then pulls the plant out. An enormous root comes out whole, providing a huge supply of food. Normally, he would have faced a few problems. The boy picks up one root and washes it in the bucket of water. He lifts the food to his mouth and takes a bite. After some difficulty, he chose. It tasted awful, but it marked the start of his life as a farmer. After improving the soil, he focused on choosing a crop, and the vegetables there grow very quickly. Usually 20s take 20 days to grow, but those roots were ready in just 5 days, which is a little alarming. It's not as good as what he used to eat, but it's that or go hungry. Meals in his past life were fresh, delicious, and beautiful. Farmers and researchers took time to choose everything carefully, so he must be patient. Whatever the case, something there defies common sense, and it's magic. Even without fully understanding the theory, his garden vegetables grew very fast, so he will start selling them. The boy hopes he will one day enjoy the taste of that food. He doesn't know how to make that happen. Now that he paused to think about it, a story he heard in class about green peas stuck with him. They observed the green peas with their own eyes and, over successive harvests, discovered the principle of genetic inheritance. While trying to decide what to do, the little boy falls asleep. Start by checking the twainus' characteristics. The roots differ, and the leaves and flowers do as well. Some are black and some are purple. Some have smaller numbers and others have larger ones. One has white flowers, the other has yellow flowers. After we classify the characteristics, he divided them into 6 planting sections. After he started using this method, it became his hobby and part of his routine. Then the boy realized the vegetables were magical too. His magic only blends inner and outer mana, and using it consumes the combined mana. Even if he tries to fuse the magic again, he has no internal mana, so he cannot use magic. The boy has no idea how to restore his mana when that happens. Recovery isn't quick while he eats. He learned this after he began eating regular food. He concluded that eating regular foods and vegetables could help him recover more quickly. After eating, the manate needs time to fully recover, so he has not noticed yet, and one important question remains. He wants to know which food restores the most mana. Differences in recovery volume are evident across various twains. The taste hasn't really changed, but he'll put that off for now. The boy is enjoying discovering so much in just a few days. He knows he must compare and prioritize foods that restore the most mana, but his body can only do so much. The boy wants to learn a faster method. For now, he will simply expand the soil. The boy places his hands on the ground. At first, he cannot concentrate without closing his eyes. By now, he's quite used to it. Once the energy dissipates, it settles on top of his plantation. He tries to figure out what it is. It's a kind of shimmering gas. The boy can't see clearly. He focuses his refined mana into his limbs. A strange thing happens. The whole plantation stirs, and the little boy is impressed. A blue gas rises from the soil. Picking up one of the roots, he realizes it is the plant producing the blue gas. A leak at the root is letting it escape into the air. Impressed, the boy starts pulling up other roots to compare. The boy concludes that the darker blue one restores the most mana. In other words, blue must be the mana itself. He kept watching and eating while focusing the mana in his eyes. Larger roots held more mana, and though the taste stayed terrible, he kept working on genetics day after day. When he was 5, he discovered many more things. The boy discovered a type that restores an enormous amount of mana. Still, it has no immediate effect. The information and the magical blue color left him euphoric for a while. The little boy wonders what would happen if he focused his mana on a different part of his body. This is not just about his eyes. He needs to test it, but right now he should just sleep. Until then, he had merely circulated the mana through his body and allowed it to seep into the soil rather than use his magic. Instead of relieving himself, the man keeps it inside. By concentrating a large amount of mana, he gained legendary body strength, which made it much easier to water the plants and expand his land. The boy thinks that if muscles can grow stronger, internal organs might too. Improving his digestion would let him eat more easily and absorb mana from vegetables faster. The boy spent a long time planning how to use his magic to handle the situation. Then one fine day, someone says they will leave. Mary asks him to be careful, her expression is sad, and asks the boy to return home safely. The man gives her a smile and informs the MC he will leave everything in his care. The family's pillar, his father, had to leave. The boy didn't understand why a farmer had to leave home. He was called to war. A large-scale conflict erupted, forcing most of the male villagers to leave and sending all the boys to the war. In that world, he always felt technology was severely lacking. Apparently, the problem is war. In calmer times, villagers worked together to farm the land. The system was fair, so the more you could farm, the more land you received. If there were no wars, more fields could exist and technology would thrive. Young boy Fields was downcast. Mary reassures the boy and tells him to stay calm because his father has gone to war before. Assume creating fields is an important responsibility he must take on. Rates scale with how much land you cultivate. The boy is worried about the quality of the equipment of those who went to war because some carry farming tools that are useless in battle. These men are treated as ordinary soldiers and often get injured, destabilizing their communities and sometimes costing them their homes. The boy does not want to be involved in anyone's death, yet some of the war's potential will be necessary. Expect weapons and armor to be in high demand. Above all, money matters most. A woman arrives to trade some roots for potatoes. The boy sees that the problem in that world is their reliance on bartering. Money does not circulate in that village. Given the circumstances, only one option remains. He'll have to rely on a merchant. Mary suggests that the boy should make sandals. The roots he grows can be used to make many things, like sandals, boots, and other types of shoes. This lets the boy buy whatever he wants. The MC thinks this is very inefficient. A merchant travels between cities and towns to sell goods and can still negotiate prices. It must be a foolproof way to make money. In the city, a man looks at the sandals and thinks they are very good. The main character says his mother taught him to make them. Smiling, the young man decides to buy a pair of sandals. For a moment, the little boy felt very happy because he was going to get money. Reality set in soon. He got only 6 old copper coins. The sandals' price was much lower than he expected. At that pace, he'll need a lifetime to buy weapons. He calls for a merchant, and the MC asks if he can ask him something. A few days passed after learning the market prices from the merchant. Tired from working so much, the young man is going to try something like that now. The information he gathered will be a useful resource for increasing profits. He plans to run an experiment to grow magic mushrooms. The MC was shocked to find that mana restores existed. That day the merchant showed him a magic mushroom, which is rare and hard to grow. According to the merchant, the item is very rare. The MC looks on, speechless. So is that just a shiitake mushroom? The merchant is bragging that he has it. Contrary to his expectations, the flavor was rather plain, and with a cultivation kit, he can make the shiitake grow. Mushrooms grow from fungi on trees, which are their main source of nutrients. If magic mushrooms grow like shiitake, the possibilities are endless. Drying the trunks saved time. First ensure the right balance of dryness and moisture, then plant the fungi and wait for them to grow. If it were that easy, someone else would have already tried. Because they're called magic mushrooms, they must contain some mana. If he steals nutrients from the tree trunk, their mana must also come from it. If so, he can just give those wooden trunks to his monitor and is eager to try. First, assign different amounts of mana to each log of wood. During the day, he cares for the field. Late afternoon, he tends the logs, and at night makes sandals with his mother. After a while, the mushrooms appear. Only 3 remain, but his cultivation apparently worked. To make it work, he needs to farm on a large scale. Now his house has no room for that pile of wood because sandal and tunic plantations take up most of the space. Rather than extra storage, he needs a building dedicated to it. Using his magic to fertilize the soil, he can also create crests. Using this approach, we can reshape the soil and build something new. This is a challenge for magical architecture. He's not pushing himself without a plan. Much of the soil there can be used as building material. Creating something from nothing is a rule of magic and very difficult. For example, earth magic exists only in video games. He draws the refined mana in his body into his palm to form throwable gravel stones. The damage a stone causes depends on how fast it travels. Visualizing the whole process makes that clear. If that is possible, it is still extremely inefficient. Using something that already exists makes consumption more efficient. The little boy grows thoughtful. Strangely, he can only use magic properly when he works with soil. It wouldn't be a problem if he could just convert the soil into metal. A good challenge is to build a warehouse from soil. Mana starts flowing through the boy, and he is determined. A spell triggers while he keeps his hands on the ground. Confusion takes over, the boy falls and then faints. He wakes up a little later to find his mother standing in front of him, very worried, and his head hurts. He spent 2 days in bed. The boy fainted because he drained all the mana in his body, causing an acute mana deficiency. Originally, all the mana in his body circulates to make using magic easier. This includes using mana to boost the body's physical abilities. Now he is grateful he never ran out of mana and died. The failed mission taught him a lesson. A massive crater formed where the boy had used his power. Normally, mana wouldn't drain like that, so there must be a reason for the sudden loss of all his mana. Consider the relationship between area and volume. A square with each side of 10 meters has an area of 100. A cube measuring 10 meters on each side has a volume of 1,000. He likely used 10 times more mana than necessary and will need to stop lifting the building for a moment. Instead, he will try to make the materials for his building. Using the soil, the boy manages to make a brick. Architectural magic comes from his dreams, and creating the bricks was a success. Later, the little boy makes a square with them, and though it's wobbly, it's just his first try. It is fundamentally part of earth magic, and its uses keep expanding. Something draws the boy's attention. He sees it as a terrible thing, destroying the lands. Soil his ancestors farmed for generations will soon be unsuitable for farming. Deep down, he's always been proud of how special his village looks. Cast the spell to heal the land and turn stones into fertilizer that enriches the soil. Magic to cultivate fields, to strengthen the body or parts of it, and now to make bricks. Still, he finds field cultivation magic dull. At present only he can use it, and there is no reason to name it, especially since no magic words are required to use it. Still, he improves the soil every time. He says the name of the magic because it makes him feel happier. It's all because it's taking him so long to learn to use and cast spells. The main character says the magic words, and the soil is completely transformed, leaving him impressed. Magic sprang to life the moment he spoke. Although he's used to it now, he once had to imagine what he wanted before it became real. It seems he has finally learned to create his own spells. It's now becoming more efficient than he originally thought. Silent magic is good at first, but becomes boring after a while. Pleased that he can use magic just by speaking, the boy uses the power to improve the soil again. He now has a 10-meter field. Casting magic by speaking ensures the effects will be constant. Leaving that as is, he can simply activate the magic in his head to adjust how much soil will be cultivated, and the mana cost depends on the size of the area. The boy still can't grasp how that's possible. He experiments with a spell that makes bricks. Talking all day, he makes bricks even as he falls asleep, until he finally completes the spell to create bricks with the same mass. It's entirely conditional. In this case, the condition is simply casting the spell. That's how he learned his new spellcasting technique. Lately, the other villagers have been acting strangely. He apparently exaggerated a bit when he did the brick experiment, and his mother points out that having that many bricks is a problem. Noting they'd at least be useful if they were plates, the woman gives the main character an idea. Tell me whether bricks can be made from the soil. This means the same ingredients can be used to make kitchen utensils, so the boy makes a rice pot. Excited, the MC begins making many household items and gives them to his mother as gifts. Until she says they already have enough, and the boy can stop making those items. Still, the boy intends to make his mother happy. Until then, he made brown, dull things. Now focus on quality instead of quantity. Mary is very happy to receive her new white porcelain cup. You don't always need the exact materials for magic. The little boy decides to make something that looks even more expensive, so his mother will be even happier. The new item was a cup with childlike flower drawings, and his mother loved it. Despite his lack of artistic talent, he made the cup. The boy cannot make porcelain cutlery, but in his past life, he once heard that sea sand could be used to make certain things. He imagines a long, transparent cylinder. A glass cup is created as a new item. This creates something new that likely has never been seen in that village or beyond. Now the boy is selling sandals and magic mushrooms. Despite receiving 14 bronze coins, he is still indignant. Even though the amount is larger, they are still just bronze coins. The merchant suddenly says he wants to speak to the little boy. He sees a great opportunity because he wanted to sell the things he made, so he asks the merchant what he wants. The man says he would like to buy some of the bricks the boy made. The merchant asked if he had built anything recently, and the boy looked confused, saying it was only a warehouse. Even so, the man is surprised it was built from bricks. Now he asks the little boy to talk to his parents about selling the bricks, but first the MC confirms he will sell. Then he says excitedly that he made some utensils, but the other man looks confused. The merchant turns and says he is only interested in the bricks and will look at the pots and plates later. Grabbing him frantically, the child insists the man will not regret it. Faced with that pressure, he agrees to take a look. Seeing everything the little boy made, he is impressed and asks how the child managed it. The merchant agrees to buy it with the bricks. The boy is happy and expects to earn more than a few bronze coins. Still, nothing changed, and he managed to get 5 bronze coins. The MC grabs the man again and says the man must think the MC is just a silly little child who does not know the price of things. The merchant says he's paying a lot more than usual for it, and the boy asks why it's so cheap. They are very beautiful, and some people might buy them for a good price, but the merchant says he usually sells to ordinary people. Even if the items are nice, people don't have that much money to spend. Wealthy clients only deal with merchants they have known for a long time. The man doesn't stand a chance. Marketing high-priced products to people who can afford them is the key to business. In that world, there is no internet or newspapers to advertise products. In any case, he has no contacts to publicize it, and talking to that merchant was a waste of time. The man tells the boy not to be so sad about it. The brick market is doing very well at that moment. He plans to buy every brick the little boy can make by next time. Over the next few days, the main character builds pile after pile of bricks. The merchant returns impressed. The boy did keep his promise to make more bricks. He would not have believed any other child's word, but they had known each other for some time. This time the merchant brought a creature strong enough to carry that pile of bricks, and the child is impressed. It looks like a dragon. The monster is staring at him. The merchant asks if the boy has ever seen a horse dragon, and the main character is impressed, but the merchant soon explains it is not a dragon. That creature is a monster at work. Service beasts begin serving their owner at the egg stage, and the eggs grow by absorbing the protector's mana. The creature will reflect the mana used for cultivation, so it depends on how you hatch the egg. When you hatch the egg, the service creature will be completely loyal to you. The MC completes loading the man's giant cart with the bricks. That world has many powerful dragons, and the horse dragon is especially popular. Horses are very sturdy animals. Birds are also popular because they can fly. The MC asks whether these work animals are expensive, and the man says the riding horse models are even more valuable. Demand for bricks is high now, but that won't last, and the boy still doesn't know how to care for an egg. With luck, he can earn a lot from it. Then he calls the merchant. The main character says he wants to try hatching a beast egg too. The little boy asks the merchant to bring him an egg next time he comes. The cost of that piece was simply all the money he had saved up to that point. On a fine day, several men returned at once. The children were happy to be reunited with their parents. Returning, Sheila lifts her 4th daughter into her arms. Mary is thrilled to be back with her husband. She then asks her son if the merchant brought him anything good and if he can lend her some money. However, the MC says he has no money. She doesn't understand what he's saying. At 3 years old, the boy decided he wanted to raise the sprites. His mother realized the job was too heavy for a child. Still, he was determined. She told her son to make sure the cultivation grew well. When they checked, the little boy had made several gardens. At that moment, Mary realized her son was amazing. After some time, the 5-year-old boy wanted to save money. She felt it was too soon for that, but the MC said he wanted to save for the future. Even as a child, he handled dealings with the merchant alone all this time, aside from the magic mushrooms he cultivated. Sometimes she worried about how hard the boy pushed himself. Her son built a warehouse using his own bricks. He also gave a beautiful porcelain cup. She could never figure out how he did all that. Mary asked why the boy had done that. She can't believe he spent all his earnings from work on a beast's egg. The MC says when the egg hatches, they will make a lot of money, and the woman replies that if it were that easy, others would already be rich. "Those eggs are like a lottery," the woman says. "Many of them never hatch." The boy's mother says she only let him work to save money. The MC replies that because the money came from his work, he can spend it however he wants. Mary points out that's not entirely true because he even sold the sandals they made together. From then on, he must get her permission before buying anything. Although he tries to apologize, the woman wants him to think about what he did. His mother is young and beautiful, but she becomes frightening when she is angry, and now the boy has no other choice. As the brick maker selling to the merchant, he'll bend the system a little to save money and keep a secret. At that moment, everything is focused on that egg. Using the sprites, the boy made a small pouch for the egg so he can carry it safely. When several people help hatch a single egg, the mana varies, so it's hard to produce the same working creature each time. The main character fills his eyes with mana, and the egg glows with a blue light. The boy notices it has very little mana, but it is still surrounded by that color. With a powerful breath, the little boy pours mana into the egg. The blue deepens, and the boy feels happy because it means he absorbed the mana. He's unsure how much mana to use for that. Still, he wants the egg to be used as effectively as possible. Day after day, he watched the egg and made it more monotonous. The little boy thinks he should build a hiding place. His mother says he is still a child and should not spend money on himself. The local customs are very outdated. The head of the family makes decisions under a patriarchal system. The MC started saving money so he can buy a decent weapon, which will be key to making a name for himself in wartime. Younger children are forced to devote their lives to the elders unless they leave that family. Now the boy must stop making weapons and begin preparing to live on his own. Strike while the iron is hot. The village where he was born is surrounded. Outside there is a very dense forest. Once the land was safe enough, people cut down trees and farmed the land to build the village. Despite the wars, the city keeps struggling to stay standing, but it is shrinking. Land outside the village belongs to no one except the person who cultivates it. Now the little boy decides he needs to find a place to build his house. Using magic, he enhances his body. That lets him control his fatigue, no matter how much work he takes on. The young boy also uses his power to work the soil. He pushes the trees up so he can knock them down. He then knocks down all the trees. Now all those trees must be cleared from the site where he plans to build. Using the power to level the ground, he removed the trees. They repeated the magic until the plain was built. The boy cleared a large area in the forest and now must build it brick by brick, and he wishes there were a magic way to build the entire property at once. He then realizes he doesn't have to build a house. According to his hypothesis, trying to build an entire structure at once uses more mana than he has because of the volume, so the solution is simple. All he needs to do is make each wall separately. He uses all the bricks, stacking them to build a sturdy wall. To illustrate this, the boy uses the image of a single wall. Then the little boy builds a square from bricks. The roof and the door must be made by hand. Finishing his house in the forest would take him no time. Meanwhile, he kept a close watch on the egg. It's grown a lot and the blue is much stronger, so it should hatch soon. Walking past the door, his mother calls to the boy to hurry. The main character has finally turned 6. At age 6, you are baptized in the village. That is the young boy's day. At most 10 people are in the church, which is normal for a small village. The MC doesn't remember his past life baptism, so it probably wasn't very pleasant, but the naming ceremony is part of that baptism. Now the young boy can finally use magic in everyday life. People have always feared monsters and lived in hiding from them. Still, many people learned to use magic, and more human territories survived. People who cannot defend themselves on their own are given a divine power to thrive. The naming ceremony will begin now. Each day, citizens undergo a baptism ceremony to receive magic. The church can gain followers, and the feudal lord receives their names. It's a system everyone can benefit from. The priest says that by giving that name, the boy will gain divine protection and the power to use magic. Still, magic may only be used to improve human life. The priest asks the little boy to promise not to use magic without reason, and the boy agrees. He opens a heavy book, and the main character notices its intricate decoration. After reading a passage, the priest closes the book and puts it on the table. He then calls the boy Ashira and Mary's son. The man says the church will baptize him. From that moment on, he will belong to us and must live with integrity for his Lord and his friends. The Lord will watch over him with his divine protection. R uses his power to improve vision. He notices the magic concentrated in the man's palm. He suddenly thrusts a magic circle toward him. We are taken aback. For a long time, the boy has wondered what would happen if the magic concentrated in his brain. Apparently, memory is preserved. Outside the magic circle, new information is being placed directly into his mind. He can now use everyday magic. The boy checks the light and it soon comes on. R notices no difference between magic performed by children and by adults, showing that the magic is completely stagnant. Even after years of improving that ability, it will not move from where it is. The little boy's plans to escape everything go down the drain. Ars had hoped to use magic other than Earth after gaining his powers, but for now, he needs to set that aside. Another thing that caught his attention was the priest magic circle. R wants to understand more about it. Days go by, and the little boy still doesn't understand any of it. He can hardly read even modern handwriting, let alone ancestral scripts. At the very least, he wanted to be able to write his own name. The egg begins to crack. The boy's excitement rises as he imagines what kind of beast will come out of it. The egg keeps making noises, as though someone inside is trying to get out. Still, it takes a long time. R wonders if he could give a little help. At that moment, the egg cracks open and a creature emerges. It resembles a cross between a horse and a handle. That cute little horse is staring at ours. The little animal tries to stand, and the boy wonders if it can already stand. Even with its shaky legs, R gets very excited, claps for his new little pet, and then pets it. Deep down, the boy is grateful to have gotten that little animal. R notices that it is a horse mixed with a reindeer. As it grows, it will be strong and big enough to carry things. Without warning, the small creature begins eating its own eggshell, and the boy can't understand why. Ars does not know what that little monster eats. Work beasts rely on magic for nutrition, but this one behaves differently. Giving meat every day would be very hard for him, and he has heard stories of people who couldn't keep their pets because they didn't have money for food. Also, if it needs milk, he has none to give, so the little monster starts eating something else. The little one is eating the radishes that grow easily nearby, and it seemed to love them. So far it appears to be a herbivore, so he can afford to feed that little monster. The little horse stares at him, then rubs against his leg and climbs into his lap. It lies down there and sleeps. R is confused by what's happening, but it's very cute. The horse is already very large. He had kept the horse unnamed to avoid getting emotionally attached, but now he wants to name it. He wants a special name and feels that everyday magic is programmed and written in the magic circle. Using a magic circle, he will do his best to handle the naming work. Because the creature is magical, it's likely to succeed and then can find water on its own. If it does not get enough water or drinks contaminated water, it could die. R considers what name to give it and lacks confidence in his naming ability. If he remembers correctly, a two-horned creature was called a bicorn, but now he can't match the names. The boy then remembers the name Valkyrie. That belonged to a legendary war god. The boy asks what his companion thinks of the name. Valkyrie engages cheerfully. She seems to understand human language. Intelligent as she is, he will now begin the naming ceremony. Recently, one of ours managed to refine magic naturally by breathing. This time he will handle it carefully and delicately. Fill his entire body with concentrated magic. R reaches forward, pushing his power outward and struggling to keep all the magic in place. Aiming at Valkyrie, he tries to recreate every detail of the magic circle he memorized. The little boy feels his veins about to burst and begins sweating from exhaustion. Soon, a magic circle appears before him. Despite nearing his limit, he still managed to do it. R then says her name should be Valkyrie. The circle breaks apart. Tired, Ours collapses to the ground. It proved far more complicated than he had imagined. Failure could have killed him. Then he calls Valkyrie to try using magic. They step outside the little house so she can use magic without setting everything on fire. Valkyrie then forms a glowing orb. The little boy is thrilled that she can use magic. Testing several spells, the boy realizes Valkyrie uses everyday magic like starting fires or producing drinking water. A brick suddenly begins to float. Ars looks confused. Valkyrie stays calm, like she's controlling those bricks. The boy wonders what's happening. Valkyrie is using the magic that is new only to R. Perhaps the memory preservation reached her through the magic circle. That means the other children who were named could use the magic too. our child is outraged that anyone else can use what only he should know. He summons Valkyrie and demonstrates his abilities. R offers a small pot to her and asks if she can make one like it. As he expected, Valkyrie could only use the same spells he could after being named. For example, Hours can control the size of the land it flattens at any time. However, Valkyrie can only flatten squares of a fixed size. Because the naming ritual is much more systematic than a protection, it cannot customize its basic magic. R wonders whether it would be safe to sell her to someone who can use her magic. He needs to confirm this with someone now. The merchant is stunned that R's work beast uses magic and says he's never heard of such a thing. The MC learned how valuable information is in that world. A merchant who trades everywhere and has never heard of this is probably right. Beasts that use magic are rare. The merchant asked if the boy's egg had hatched, and the boy said yes. It became a horse that could carry things. The merchant grows excited and asks to see the animal. Ars says he will bring Valkyrie to him, and she is learning not to use magic in front of people. The seller is impressed and says she is truly remarkable. It's great to have help carrying things, but she also looks beautiful and her color is lovely. Ars says he has no intention of selling her under any circumstances, and the merchant asks why. He spent every penny on that egg hoping to make a profit, and we admit he has probably grown attached to the animal. He keeps her around mainly because he's interested in her magic. It's true he wants to stay by her side. With her by his side, because she is much stronger, he can stay safe. The merchant asks whether the boy wants to strike a deal. He has 5 creature eggs and can give all of them to Hours. Not everything is that simple because he's a merchant. He says he'll place the eggs with Hours until they hatch. He will return to buy the newly born monsters. If our people hatch the beasts, finding a buyer won't be hard. R says he is in agreement. He still needs to define the terms. The terms set out the beast's value, the rules for selling them, and other details, and make Rs feel much more secure about the deal. If he can gather enough monster eggs, he will no longer have money problems on the farm. From then on, he is determined to work hard. Rs realizes he must properly infuse his magic into those eggs. Valkyrie sniffs them while Rs says she can't eat them, but then the creature quickly puts one in her mouth. The boy panics when he thinks one of the eggs has broken. Until Valkyrie lies down beside them, and Hours notices they are all intact. Apparently she wants to hatch those eggs. The creature wants to care for them as if they were her own. She touches the eggs with her snout and transfers her energy. Rs is shocked that Valkyrie can inject mana. Apparently she was born knowing the eggs need mana to hatch. He concludes she can't hatch those eggs because the creatures depend on the energy of whoever hatches them, so it wouldn't make sense for him to keep them. Then one of us notices she put her magic into 3 of the eggs. You can share caring for an egg with others, but that makes reproducing that level of magical power more complicated. R agrees to leave 3 of the eggs for Valkyrie. He tells her to be careful and to make sure the eggs hatch properly. The boy feels proud. In his past life, he came across a dog in the middle of the street. Back then, his mother doubted he could really look after that little creature. He said he could not take on that responsibility. He kept the dog after promising to take responsibility for it. At the time he thought feeding and walking the little one was enough, but food, vaccinations, medicines, and vet visits still cost money. Thinking back on his parents' words that day, he realizes they were right. Caring for several junior Valkyries has made the situation more complicated. All 5 eggs hatched safely. The ones he hatched are slightly larger, but they all look like Valkyrie. He's already passed the first phase. As expected, the more there are, the less food remains. To keep the business going, the plantation at his hideout won't be enough, so he needs to cultivate more gardens in the forest. Excited, Arstels called all those animals to come with him. He applies the same method as before, removing trees and leveling the ground. After that, prepare and improve the soil so everything is ready for planting. Despite R's efforts, those little monsters remain very restless. Although the boy Zicker named them, they can still use magic. Magic isn't something you get from a name, or else beasts follow different rules than humans. All monsters born into that family can use magic. R wonders if Valkyrie can ask the others not to use magic. For now, the best option is to focus on expanding the planting area. The size is now far more pleasant than before. It is massive, even so it looks like deforestation. It is so large you cannot measure it with one hand. Having learned about deforestation in his previous life, he worries about the harm it can do to nature. Villagers say the forest is large enough to explore, and he must feed several creatures, with larger ones preferred. The bigger it gets, the harder it will be to take care of everything. They should work together to fight fatigue. R asks if Valkyrie is ready for the first ride. She isn't a horse, so a regular saddle should work fine. That was his belief, but his father says no one in the village can make a saddle for a monster. A cart would normally be enough for these monsters, but he still wants to gallop on Valkyria. He plans to go to the battlefield someday, since cavalry is far stronger than regular soldiers. This is not a mistake because being on top of Valkyria gives him a great advantage. Even so, if there is no saddle for him to ride on, try galloping this way to solve it. Controlling a living being by syncing its movements with yours takes skill. Riding Valkyrie was much easier than he expected. Valkyrie is highly intelligent and walks at a pace that suits him. That let him ride her without a saddle. Still, things did not go as expected. He began feeling terrible muscle pain after spending the day riding, something he had not expected. Even when Valkyrie is careful, he keeps swaying, so he must brace his legs to avoid falling. Mobilizing his muscles strains them all, which can be much harder than simply wearing armor. Still, for our side, there is no other option, because he doesn't plan to give up. He then kept galloping every day to prepare. The boy says Ours always gets excited when it lies down to sleep and talks nonstop. The main questions are where he got that, and whether he is really doing it, and he was learning a new magic after galloping training. Looking at people who use magic, he sees a blue aura in their eyes. The magic inside the body may flow away like steam and be wasted. He wonders what might happen if he stopped it from escaping. A major development in natural healing ability was observed. The boy has noticed the effect so far, but he still hasn't used the cultivation spell because it remains constant. Leveling makes an area completely flat, and brick creation produces several items of the same size at once. The body fortification spell strengthens your whole body until the spell ends. The strengthening spell keeps working normally, even if he falls asleep afterward. In short, the proposal to cultivate spells aims to extend how long fatigue recovery lasts. Thanks to this magic, he wakes up very energized the next day despite muscle fatigue. We are very happy about this. Lying on the bed like a fool, he smiles. Once he has recovered, he can begin galloping training without hesitation. The merchant shows up with an extra egg, but the boy has already hatched all the eggs the merchant gave him earlier. He had expected 1 or 2 to hatch, but the deal with the beast is moving very fast. Having multiple eggs doesn't mean they will hatch together. Plan to wait more than a month for even one to hatch. The merchant can put the creatures up for sale, but worries buyers may misuse them. At first, he does not want to sell the creatures, and Ars asks if he plans to use them in his own business. Smiling, the man says he does too, but this time it is something different. The young boy must give one of his animals away for free. R reacts with outrage, and the man tries to explain himself. The merchant promises to introduce him to the aristocrats who govern those lands. Earlier he said traveling merchants like him struggle to make connections and need credit to sell their products, while the aristocratic market controls transactions and shuts out newcomers. R notices the merchant's story about losing all the items he made was a lie. The merchant changes the subject, saying expensive items can only be sold to the wealthy, but he has no access to credit, which makes the situation difficult. If you give that creature to a rich person, the story becomes completely different. In that world, writable creatures are seen as very valuable and useful, and in wartime they become strategic assets. Delivering one of the creatures to them will forge a strong connection with the aristocracy. Joining that circle makes meeting other aristocrats easier, improves your social standing as a messenger, and brings you into contact with the nobles who rule the land. R questions what he means. Selling a combat creature to the enemy would put everyone's lives at risk. The merchant says they should go to the aristocrat's residence, and the boy asks if he must go too. The man says he'll talk to his father. That's how he left the city for the first time. Everything Ars saw impressed him. This is the city where the burghers live. Thanks to all those creatures, they pulled the cart in 3 days. Arriving in Fontana, they entered the city of the nobles. That's the walled city, and this is our first adventure. The boy notices how lively everything is, and the merchant tells him to look around. Construction is increasing, so demand for bricks is growing. To expand the city, they're tearing down and rebuilding part of the wall, but there aren't enough bricks even if they reuse them. R asks the merchant if demand will continue, and the merchant says yes, but the city can make its own bricks and should soon meet the demand, so R will not be able to spend much more time selling his bricks. Then the boy must strike good deals with those nobles. A sharply dressed man introduces himself as Raymond and says he is a negotiator for House Fontana. R is the merchant, and Kellen Neal stands in front of the man. The MC is furious because he expected to meet the nobles and enter their homes. Either way, the nobles had no reason to meet them in person. Raymond asks whether that creature is a horse that can be ridden. The merchant agrees and says they are high-quality creatures that can even be ridden in armor. They are pleased to present Mr. Fontana with the work creature. Raymond asks who the child is. The merchant identifies our man as the one who brought those things to life, and the man beside him as his father. Raymond says the monster will take a long time to create, and the merchant agrees, calling the species Valkyrie. He would welcome authorization to produce and sell that species. Meanwhile, Ars notes that Valkyrie is the name of the first individual, not the whole species. The real Valkyrie is caring for the village, and he will not sell her. Raymond says he'll sign their permission form later. He will inform Mr. Fontana about it. Then he tells them to keep working hard. The merchant agrees, and one of ours wonders if the negotiation ended there. Raymond clears his throat and says those creatures won't be useful in war. The merchant asks why, and Raymond says the horns are awkward and make it impossible to use a sword or any weapon. He then calls an employee. Next, he tells them to cut off the horn. Ars freezes at the decision. His father holds him back as he tries to stand. The main character can't understand how Raymond could hurt the creatures he just received. Angry, the boy grits his teeth, unable to do anything at that moment. Afterward, they went to the inn. The boy's father tells him he did well, but the boy only thinks his creatures were hurt. Akla says the boy should wash his hands first. It's hard for him to believe the creature's horns were cut off. They stayed completely quiet. Many people say the first step in training a guide dog is to teach it not to bark. The best guide dogs stay quiet even if you burn them with a cigarette. A dog is man's best friend and can go as far as they want. In our case, the creatures he was making work the same way. The little boy cries nonstop. His father tells him to stay calm and ask questions even if he is outraged. Ashella explains he is more concerned that those creatures will not live long than about their horns. They will probably be blamed if the beast dies quickly. R considers whether the creatures would live shorter lives without horns, but he doesn't even know their lifespan. Ars tells his father the man is very calm, and Ashella says he's simply taking his place as a farmer. His father is an uneducated farmer, but that does not make him stupid. Sheila knows some things he does not. The boy cleared the forest quickly. People would likely see this as terrible. Despite that, his father tried desperately to persuade the locals and appealed to the ruler of those lands. With so many creatures, they had to plant a lot to feed them. Still, the crops they grew were not enough. Even the nobles wanted to breeding of beasts like those and to cultivate the forest, so they quickly received a license to sell. Arsis's father talks to him. Now that they're in the city, they should take the chance to buy what they need. Our child was lucky to be born to a father he can count on. That makes him a very lucky boy. They walk through the center of the city. The little boy says he hasn't seen any wooden buildings and wonders if they're uncommon. Ashella explains wooden houses are prone to catching fire because of magic. Because the lighting comes from magic, the city's buildings also have so few windows. The boy realizes everything ties back to that magic, and Ashley says it's all because of God's protection. You receive those basic magics after the magic circle gives you a name. The boy wonders whether the power really comes from there. Mac then gets an idea about the windows. Since they're already used to that difficult style, replacing the windows with glass ones would be a great idea. With a few spells, he'll soon be able to create several windows, and there will be enough demand for the constructions. The merchant notes ours is very ambitious, and his father agrees that he is always surprised by him. Even the village survives only because of that little boy. In the past, people often died of hunger. For years, people kept dying, and the land fell into ruin. This was a time of constant war, and it got so bad that people fought each other for food. At that time, he found some food, and although radishes grew everywhere in that land and usually tasted terrible and were hard to eat, this time they tasted different. The taste stayed awful, but it was still edible, large and firm, and its growth had even sped up. At that moment, he was certain that having more radishes would reduce the death toll. Word came that a new kind of radish was coming from a village farther north of the forest, and he was shocked when he arrived. Back then, the whole village was dark, empty, and hungry. But things were very different there. That was when Ours called the merchant. He offered the sandals. The boy was so young he had not yet been baptized. Ours stood out among the farmers and asked him several questions about what he could do. After buying a large quantity of radishes and sandals, he passed by several farms encouraging farmers to grow radishes. The merchant decided he should leave soon. A little boy from the northern village fascinated him. A few years later, the same boy tried to sell him something other than sandals. Impressed, the man realized they were the forest mushrooms he had only mentioned to Ours. Those mushrooms could sell for a high price, and the village that had nothing to offer still looked promising. Even so, children should not enter the forest. Worried, the man warned Ours that he shouldn't keep going into the forest at such a young age. The little boy said he'd be fine. Many children the merchant met said the same thing and later died. To avoid danger, he suggested buying bricks from the little boys. Then Ours came up with a new invention. Cutlery, plates, cups, and mugs were laid out. The merchant called it incredible and asked how the little boy made them, but the MC said it was a secret. After a close inspection, the merchant became suspicious of the little boy. The boy is likely of noble birth, but it is a secret. The man thinks the boy inherited all those goods and may belong to the fallen family, but he is completely wrong. When they met again, the boy had been baptized, and one of Ours surprised him again. The egg the boy raised turned into a magnificent horse-like monster. What stands out about Ours is his inspiration. Rather than staying stuck selling bricks and mushrooms, he keeps looking for new items to sell. R grows reflective and tells the merchant he wants weapons to go to war. The merchant feels he now understands everything. Rs likely wants to restore the fallen family, which is weakened by the military fighting, and he is hiding in that village with a family that is not his. Either way, Ours is clearly an important person. To build a relationship with the boy, the merchant hired him to work exclusively for himself. In time, he will likely regain everything and be restored to nobility. Rs rouses the merchant from his delirium. As they were going to buy things on the street, he asks what is happening, and the man tells them to go. Always willing to help the boy, he made his life revolve around Ours. When they return from the trip, use all grim shouts for Rs. It's about her mother, who is very happy to see her. She greets her with a warm hug. After a few days in the city buying what they needed, they returned to the village. They even obtained a large saw to clear the fallen trees, a cart for transport, and the drink her father wanted. The money he made from that first sale seems to be running out, and it was only a one-time thing. After that, money from selling creatures will come in more easily, and the boy already has a basket full of eggs to raise. R has decided to trade the Valkyrie monster at the same price as a dragon for sale. People call precious, expensive creatures property, as if someone were making them exclusive like a collection of luxury cars. He must do one thing to keep that business going. The beasts he delivered to the Fontana family had their horns cut off. He must determine the effect of removing the horns. One will have its horns removed, and the other will keep them for comparison. In his past life, the boy cut off goats' horns to keep them from getting hurt in fights, so he now thinks it's acceptable. Regardless, he must see those creatures as servants that provide comfort to people. Ari apologizes to the creature and asks it to calm down. The boy changed his mind and cut off the horns. All the creatures are fine, even the one that lost its horns. Something was different, it tried but couldn't. Eri quickly learned that creatures lacking horns cannot use magic. The boy gathers mana in his eye, and both the horned monster and the one without horns keep their magical power. It seems one of them can no longer use it. Humans experience the same thing. His parents say people who lose both hands can no longer use magic. This occurs because mana must be concentrated in a small extremity, which cannot be done without fingers. The same rule applies to horns. Cutting them makes magic impossible, and that information could help him. The street vendor said he'd never heard of a beast that could use magic to cause trouble, but something more important is happening. If the Valkyrie keeps using her magical injection to hatch the eggs, the species will lose its exclusivity. Despite apparently having its horns cut off, the creature is still living normally. R decided to remove the horns from every horse and deer he planned to sell. Someone asked the boy whether he hadn't brought something amazing. The boy asks if the priest means the Fontana family's permission, and the priest confirms. Still, the man wasn't talking about a license to sell monsters. In that empty village, the only thing he found properly written was the baptism session book. When rain keeps him from the fields, he goes to the church to learn to read. The priest says the document recognizes the clean forest as our property. The boy says his father takes care of him and doesn't mind that his taxes are paid in wheat. The priest says the document's importance isn't just about taxes, and Hours asks whether the letter said anything that significantly changes the situation. The priest asks where the young man cleared the land, and the MC says it's in the middle of the forest among the trees. The priest says there is nothing specifying when or where to measure the lands. Paying taxes with money satisfies that. The land does not have to be a farm, and nothing shows how it is being used. In short, the priest says the Fontana family treated him as the dominant. We're just as confused. The Fontana family dominates their territory but cannot control everything, so they appoint officials and grant them wide privileges. Families often pay money for the privilege granted to them and provide soldiers in an emergency. R asks what it means to be from a dominant family, and the priest says they were probably trying to stop the boy from going elsewhere to raise those creatures. They likely assumed that giving him the Fontana land would tie him to the place rather than to his older brother, nor did they expect that Hours, still a child, could open the land and extend it beyond the family's rules. R notes that this area is impossible for a normal child to clear, and before he realized it, he had changed jobs to become an administrator or ruler. The boy notices it is easy to expand your land when others underestimate you. Still, he needs to explore now. Riding Valkyrie and walking through the forest, he uses magic to tend the soil and cut down trees. The hornless ones drag the logs to another spot. The boy uses land leveling to even out all the barren land. Even if he expands his land holdings, the profits will not change. Those 4 letters should let him earn money. Selling livestock is enough, but he needs another option. Growing magical mushrooms and field crops takes more work. Hours decides he must hire help because he cannot do it alone and needs someone to cultivate the mushrooms or care for the field. Before he can explore, he needs to find a part-time employee. As usual, he asked his family if anyone in the village could help him. Ars's brother reminds his younger brother not to forget him. At first he jumps at the job opportunity, but then he refuses. Ars's brother presses the issue and asks whether their mother agrees, while the woman hesitates. She adds that it's fine as long as both keep helping at home. R thinks that if his brother took his work seriously, there would be nothing to complain about, but he does not expect that to happen. Knowing Bito makes him anxious because Bito usually naps and avoids his duties. If Bito does that at work, he will have to be fired. The MC asks what Beta wants, and the boy has already made up his mind. He wants one of Hours to give him a Valkyrie. He says it's unfair that only Hours can ride one, and the boy says he saw his brother trying to ride it without permission. So, are there any questions about whether Bito really likes Valkyries? The boy says every man called a hero rides a Valkyrie to save the princess. Every man is enchanted by that idea. That's how Hours ended up hiring his brother as his first employee. Arriving at Ars's hideout, Bito says the place is shabby and feels more like a prison. First, he criticized the place. This makes us look bad. Every day he grows. Now it's time to test his skills because he has always been interested in architecture. He liked the hotel they stayed at in the city that night. Moreover, Ars paid close attention to every detail of its exterior and arrangements, and he did more than just observe. Use R as mana to inspect the rooms. All that's left is for him to activate his memory preservation magic. For example, he used computer graphics to create a model of a building. He concentrated on memorizing the entire building, leaving no room behind. During his first inspection of the building, he fainted from lack of mana. His hypothesis for the failure focuses on how the flat surfaces and volumes were handled. Only the walls should have been mapped, not the entire cube. On his second attempt, he sent his mana through the blocks and memorized only the building's structure. Had he not wasted mana filling all the empty spaces, he could recreate the entire hotel at once. Recreating something by observing it is hard, but doing it from memory should be easier. First, he must send his mana into the ground to form building blocks. He will then recreate the manner he memorized. Finally, he will shape it so the blocks fit together. We are impressed he managed to build what he wanted. The experiment to recreate the hotel succeeded. Their building was square because it was in the city, but Hours could include extras like a stable for the Valkyries and a storage area. Creating purely from imagination leaves gaps like that. He may need to create the extensions separately. He copied the architecture designed by a professional, so it must be very safe. Even if he can't replicate the doors or any wooden items, that should be enough. Building something that large on the first try shows how much he's grown. The boy will move his base to that building soon. Ashla asks for a moment with her son, and he asks what's happening. The man describes the lumberjacks. After a while, the lumberjack asks what Ours is doing there so early and whether he is looking for magical mushrooms. The little boy says that's not quite it. Word reached him that the lumberjacks were furious about his cutting down trees, and his relationship with Maddock goes back to when he began supplying the magical mushrooms. Maddock realizes why the boy went into his territory. We consulted Maddock, who understands the situation, to avoid unnecessary conflicts with the lumberjacks. He handed the man a small drink. His father nearly caused a scene when he had to give up the liquor. Maddock says it's an exaggeration to call them furious, but they dislike R's actions. The boy notes the problem must be that he is cutting down too many trees. Determined to keep cutting trees to expand his territory, the boy could accept an arrangement or suggest cutting only outside their territory. He can go deeper into the forest to fetch his logs. Maddock says it sounds like a good idea. The boy still hasn't grasped the core of the problem. Ars says it may not be about the lumberjacks, and thinks the problem could be that he used the Valkyries or that he did it all alone. The MC asks if the lumberjacks feel insecure about their jobs, but the bearded man says no. Ars's actions undermine the pride and dignity they take in their work, which explains the disapproval. The MC says he never disrespected the lumberjacks, and Maddock doubts the kid understands. Born into lumberjack families, raised in lumberjack homes, and trained to do this for life, they take pride in cutting trees and see trees as both a source of income and a treasure. They disapprove of people who cut down trees needlessly. What do Ours think they will feel when they see the boy cutting down trees and leaving them to rot? His actions could make him appear disrespectful of the lumberjacks' pride in their way of life. After a pause, Ars says he understands. Maddox says using logs as material to develop the city is something they also want, and they understand we have obligations regarding the burgers. So far, none of them has spoken to the boy. They are upset, but simply want him to understand the consequences of his actions. The boy thinks his father probably heard it directly from Maddock, and they're trying to fix the problem before it becomes something bigger. Obsessed with evolving, the boy stopped paying attention to the people around him. Ours is very thoughtful. Maddock appreciates that despite his extraordinary powers, the boy still listens to what people say. The boy then asks whether Maddox wants to help him with his work. The boy wants to start managing the forest right away. The forest north of the village is so vast that its true size is unknown. With Valkyrie's help, he managed to reduce it significantly, but deforestation remains a serious problem. The soil will lose its ability to hold water and nutrients, and if the situation worsens, the whole area could become a desert. The urgent problem is that if this continues, they won't have enough firewood and won't survive the winter. R says that is why he wants to set up a responsible administration for reforestation. Space trees properly so each one can absorb enough light. So they will have trees. The boy knows about agriculture but lacks forest knowledge, so experts like Maddock and the other lumberjacks would be of great help. This setup may be enough to satisfy both him and the lumberjack. Maddock argues that the forces of nature should not be used to serve human desires. R asks whether the man understands the benefits of reforestation, and Maddock says he will discuss it with the others. Maddock persuaded the lumberjacks by saying it was better to accept it than to let Ars tamper with the forest as he pleased. After that, Arsis took responsibility for the northern part of the village, and everyone agreed. Soon Arskit is excited because he has several tree trunks for growing mushrooms. Now that Maddock is in charge of managing the forest, he can expand his cultivation and is grateful to him. Ars left the place's doors and property with the locksmith. He entrusted his brother Bateau with caring for the plants. The number of people grew quickly, and to everyone's surprise, Beta proved very good at managing them. The MC asks one of them where his brother is. The boy says he went to practice riding the beasts. R notices that Bateau left all his work on other people's shoulders. He apologizes to the man and the child, who tell him not to worry, and because they helped with the planting they also receive a share of the harvest. That little boy lost his parents in the war, and the man is unemployed because there are not enough jobs in the village, so they are grateful for the opportunity. If that had been his responsibility, he would only have thought about hiring those people and paying them in cash, but his brother went further. That change allowed Ars to focus on evolving his work with monsters, including growing magical mushrooms in the same place. People are asking whether the field is being destroyed. Bito found wild boar tracks in the fields, and Maddox found signs of 2 adult boars and piglets. R says it's not a big problem. Bito asks why he seems so calm and says this is a serious issue because people are refusing to work out of fear of the boars. Ors has dealt with boars invading the pasture, but even when they set traps, the animals were clever enough to avoid them. The reason for that problem is clear. This happens because the little boy decided to extend his growth into the forest. Some trees still stand in the forest, but he removed most of them, disrupting the food web and causing some animals to lose their territories. Ars realizes that if he leaves the boars eating his crops alone, the next generation will do the same. He must solve that problem because he is responsible for the land and must look out for the people who work in the fields. Wild boars are eating all the crops there. Hiding and watching the boars, we are struck by how large they are, and Bito says not even arrows can penetrate their skin. The MC asks his brother what they should do, and Bito says ours has to solve the problem. The boy says they should ask the bourgeois to exterminate those monsters for them. Maddox says they'll probably just tell them to handle that problem on their own. Ars asks for some time to think about it. He then heads toward the boars on Valkyrie. He tells his companion they must follow the plan exactly. The boy must face that creature directly. If that huge monster attacks, they won't survive and it will end badly. Valkyrie notices R trembling. His heart races while the horse closes its eyes. We feel a warm sensation. Noticing Valkyrie waiting for him to calm down, the boy closes his eyes with his mare. They keep moving forward. Do it more confidently this time. Valkyrie then starts running. She gallops very fast. Aiming from a Valkyrie's back at high speed is very difficult. So he came up with something else. R fires a scattered shot. Heading toward the wild boars. Small stones struck the large creature. He launched several pebbles at once. Valkyrie runs at high speed. R hasn't turned that into a spell yet, but he's doing his best. He remains weak because he is not touching the ground. The wild boar roars. It starts chasing Valkyrie and Rs as they flee, and Valkyrie runs into the forest. Wild boars move quickly. Keeping our distance from those giant creatures is very hard. Then one of ours has an idea. The strategy's key weapon is not the stone shot he made. R shouts to make Valkyrie jump using the physical enchantment. The mare moves as though she fully understands the boy's intentions. His partner is the most incredible person. They leap off a cliff and feel like they are flying as several birds circle them. Our team is amazed they are flying. Valkyrie crashes into the ground. Despite their incredible physical abilities, the physical enchantment took them to a new level. Then they hear the wild boars roar, followed by the sound of their footsteps. This is the trape device used for that strategy. The wild boars lay lifeless at the foot of the cliff. There are doubts about what happens after falling from that height, whether they still have any trace of life. His trap was the only one that could combine his earth magic with Valkyrie's speed, and he plans to eat those wild boars. Our team tells them to go home. This is how the boys' first battle in life ended. Bito is pleased with his brother, and Maddox is impressed that the boy defeated the wild boar on his own. R says everything will be fine from then on. Bito asks what the boy means. Bito then says there isn't just one giant wild boar around. You're excited. The boy says he will leave the next wild boars for us too. The main character is outraged because the experience was awful for him. After that, he handled the large wild boars whenever they appeared. Ars kept firing scattered shots. He practices with a tree. Letting a giant monster get close is dangerous, so he needs to improve his ranged attacks. The boy sharpened stones into points for his attacks. Even so, the power still only reaches 20 to 30 meters. Despite the ranged attack evolving well, the boy still cannot take down the wild boar with it. Then the MC decides to find a way to protect the field, since it is the most efficient defense against what is outside. One approach is to build a defensive wall or fence that surrounds the entire field. We should learn from the wisdom of our ancestors. R says they should begin building the wall where the field meets the forest. It should also include the areas he plans to plant in the future. One of the wild boars hit the trap's wall and tore a huge hole. Maintain a very high, strong defense. Excessive caution is never a bad idea. Then we start raising that wall. He erects a pillar 5 meters deep and 10 meters high. The boy did a good job, but he filled it with sand, so he doubts it will be enough. He can only build 5-meter walls, so he must make several and connect them. Still, as when he built the hotel, Ars senses his mana is much stronger. His plantation is so vast he cannot see its end. If building a wall were already a spell, he could do it much more easily. Still, turning something into a spell requires a lot of work and time. The hardest part is recreating that same magic. It took him a few months to figure out how to craft a spell that makes bricks. Still, he cast the wall creation spell quickly, pouring mana into the structure and weaving memory preservation into its form. That made it easier to recreate the same magic repeatedly. This let him turn that into a spell much faster than the other things. Valkyrie also begins to act. Valkyries can use their horns to cast the same spells as Arios. The boy took several of the creatures to help build the wall. After a lot of work, we now offer magical mushrooms to restore energy. Because the boy still doesn't know how to make a recovery potion, the mushroom should be enough. They have now succeeded in building a 4-kilometer wall. Then showing it to his brother, Ars asks what Bito thought of the wall. Bito says he liked it. He still doesn't know where the entrance to that place is. R reveals he forgot to think about that. Bito offers to make a path to the entrance to guide people. We had built roads, but they became inefficient and shaky. Now it's time to use this chance to build a proper road. He will build 2 entrances, one for the village and one for the forest. Concrete and asphalt roads look nice but need a lot of maintenance, so he remembers a road type that can last many years. Built by the Roman Empire, this road would likely serve well. Begin by digging a trench where the road will go. Then pack it with stones and clay. Finish by covering the hole with stone pieces. The main problem is that this type of road can only be built in a straight line, and it requires a high level of skill. Arces is in a bad mood, and someone asks what's going on. Carl, his younger brother, was appointed a few days ago. Ars says the little boy rarely comes, and the boy says he came after helping at home. Carl complains that Bido and Ars always come home very late because they are busy. Carl asks what his brother is thinking, and Ars says the glass windows he made did not sell. The little boy says they have many of those in storage, and their mother is already complaining. Ars says he got the idea for the new product while walking around the city. Carl says people don't see any problems with how they live, so they don't want anything new, and that's the problem. Given the state of their economy, it doesn't make sense for people to buy anything that is not strictly necessary. Still, Ars is downcast, saying he has nothing to sell. Carl says if he were in his place, he'd want those wooden pieces of furniture. Everything seemed much cooler than on his last visit. Ars says lumberjacks made them. Carl says the strong smell of wood attracted him. Still, the lumberjacks don't sell the furniture they make. Maybe it's because it's too heavy to carry. City residents take very good care of their furniture, so there is no demand for it there. The only way to sell is to go to the city. R says Carl's idea was good, and R will talk to the lumberjacks. The boy has always looked for goods not made with his magic, and he may be overdoing it, but he believes the village's economy would have collapsed without him. Now that Ours has expanded his lands, he should start planning how to provide stability for others. Carl is excited and says his brother is amazing. Ars tells Carl he will be able to do many things when he grows up, but for now, he should enjoy playing a lot. Carl teases him, saying they're almost the same age, only 2 years apart. The little boy tells his brother he wants to learn magic and says he heard he even taught Bito. R complains that when he tried to teach Bito magic, their mother got angry. Everything began when Bito asked Ours how he managed to carry things he could not. At that point, he began applying the physical enchantment to his own body to test its effectiveness. Curious if others felt the same effect, he began teaching Bito to control his mana. Bito, however, lacked any skill in earth magic. Still, the boy gained the physical enchantment quickly. In the end, he used it to attack the villagers. Ars doesn't understand children's fighting habits, but Bito became invincible against them. Outraged, the little children summoned older people to beat Bito, but the boy remained unbeat. Ars says Bito's technique shouldn't let him improve that much, but his height and strength help. Soon Bito began coming home with bruises as older kids, who couldn't beat him alone, started teaming up in gangs. Undeterred, Bito refused to back down and kept coming back no matter how many times he was defeated. After fighting many battles, his power grew rapidly. Their mother grew very sad and blamed herself. Bito kept fighting and left work, no matter how many times others complained to him. Their mother was sometimes seen crying. In the end, no one was left to face Bato. That's why we decided not to teach magic irresponsibly. Still, if Kalos wants to learn magic, Ours can teach him, since the little boy is smart and does not show off his strength. R commented that concentrating mana in the brain can improve memory, calculation speed, thinking ability, and other brain functions. Teaching Kalos will make him smarter. R has thought about his actions but does not regret them. Bito beats people in the village because he fights well, but now he wants to teach Kalos to use his brain instead of his muscles. Ars could teach his brother to read and do math, and he would become the administrator the village so desperately needs. If Kalos does well, he will really help with his work. A traveler reaches the road. He wants to meet the great man who defeated the giant boar. The traveler calls himself Gran, presenting himself as a merchant. He makes items. Hearing that giant boars were attacking the village, he went to confirm. R asks whether the man is from the east, and the man says it is his birthplace. The main character questions whether it is an island separate from the continent. Still, Grant says it's not exactly an island and asks if one of ours knows of such a place, but the boy changes the subject. R says it's good to meet him, and the giant boar's carcass isn't intact, but he can take a look if he wants. Grant says he would also like to meet the great man who destroyed that boy and asks whether ours knows him. The boy says it is him. The man seems skeptical, and R says he used a trap and left with his partner. Grant is indignant and insists it must be a mistake, since he heard giant boars were attacking the village north of the forest. Bito appears, says there were only a few boars, and doesn't understand why the man wants to see one at this stage of the game. Then ask major questions if they do not know. Giant boars can strengthen themselves. R says that's why they can't penetrate the monster's skin, and Gran agrees. Using materials from those boars, they can craft many different items. Ars gets excited and asks whether the boars can be used to make a sword harder than metal. The boy is glad he saved the carcasses. Grant has spent a long time traveling to find good materials. Ars asks if the man can make weapons. When Grant says yes, Ars gets excited. A man has access to adult boar and piglet bones. Ars asks Grant his opinion, and Grant says he needs to take a look. He calls it an incredible, truly magical beast. R even managed to annihilate that boar while it was casting magic at the boy, since traces of mana are still present. When you fight a magic-using monster, the material is likely to be high quality, and the mana will conduct much more smoothly. Ours gets excited because the man will craft a weapon for him from the boar's bones. Then Grant points out a problem. The man explains he would need the right materials, and the village has none, so it cannot be made. Does he specifically need questions? Grant says he needs a furnace that can handle very high temperatures and that the central mana of a magical beast is required as a catalyst. Ars says he understands the furnace part, but does not know what central mana is. Grant explains that central mana is the part of a magical beast that lets it use magic, and humans have central mana in their arms. Ars searches his animals for a horn and asks whether that would work. If that would help, it only needs to solve the furnace problem. Grant got excited and asked to see that material. R notices that the man treats it like a valuable antique. Grant says it's just a gamble. He believes it can be used. He asks if those horns belong to the working creatures there, and R says he is impressed that the man knows about it. He says he knows there are functioning monsters that can use magic, and that some facilities regularly remove the mana core to study them. Still, he didn't think this was one of those villages. R gets excited and asks if there are servant monsters that can use magic, and Gran confirms. Creatures capable of using magic are classified as Class A products. R realizes he must rethink the Valkyrie's price, and if the merchant has been hiding this from him all along, the merchant will have to pay for it. Some people ask whether they need a furnace to do that. Grant says yes, the furnace is essential, but they will still need a few other things. The little boy says he'll try to build a furnace. His bricks tolerate heat better than clay, but he has never tested them, so he does not know what temperature they can withstand. To earn a weapon, he will do anything. Doing that was his plan, but Grant said even with a furnace, they would need wind to raise the temperature. That's why they need 2 pairs of lungs. Ours says he cannot create that because he only knows how to work with soil. Grant says the boy will never earn a weapon unless he moves forward. Ars underestimated how passionate a creator would be about his project. Carl waits for Ars and notices that his brother hasn't returned home that day. The furnace and the artificial lung are finished. Grant says this is incredible and that, besides being a great creator at the furnace, our people also rock the workshop. The boy adds that he needs to go to sleep. Grant says they are not finished yet because they still need coal to use as fuel in a furnace or to build a furnace just to make coal. If they simply burn the wood, it will turn to ashes. To prevent that, they must seal the space and keep the air from escaping. Our system creates an igloo-like shelter where they make the coal. Grant has traveled to many places on that continent, but he has never found one that had everything he needed. Excited, he places his hand on Ars's shoulder and says it's time to light the furnace. The first step is the most important. But Ars runs away as soon as he gets the chance. Big questions about where the boy is going. The MC no longer thinks he can keep dealing with that. Carl perks up when he hears his brother coming, but the boy is worn out. R asks Carl to follow the strange man and help him. The little child asks whether the man means grand. The MC checks he understands and says going there will give him experience for the future. Carl asks if Ars is running away. The boy denies it and says he even built the furnace to make coal. R notes that if high-quality coal is sought in that area, the value of that land will be even higher. Reaching his limit, Ars had to send his brother to handle Grant. When Ars returned, Grant spoke to him. He then credited Carl with completing the mission. Carla lies on the ground, passed out and exhausted. Then Grant explains that the young child's job was to keep raising the furnace temperature. Ars is very sorry for his brother. Grant says he has made many items over the years, but pieces of that quality are rare. It is one of his best works. Mars grips that sword. The blade gleams like a pearl. He senses a glow in the weapon. The MC notes it is quite bright and acknowledges it is brighter than a metal sword. You can still cut enemies despite that. He can coat the sword with mana at will. Grant says he would like to leave something for us. A sword made from a piglet's tusk. Ask whether that is a dagger and whether he should use it for self-defense. Grant says it looks like a dagger, but that will change. A weapon forged with piglet magic has the growth attribute. It feeds on mana and evolves. When the dagger grows to the size of a regular sword, it will be much stronger. Grant says sword will not grow from just one person's mana, and it must pass between people to become a strong weapon. That weapon is called the Sword of Inheritance. Nobles likely owned similar weapons. Thank you for the gift. Grant is excited and says it's rare for a creator to have abundant, high-quality materials. Then Grant says he feels very lucky to have found ours. The little boy asked if Grant would like to stay and keep making items, because there was still plenty of material for him to use. The MC asks if that sword has a name. Grant says creators name magical weapons. He asks the MC to call the sword Kalgatam Gurem. That is how ours got his first sword. Afterwards, he helped his younger brother. He handed Carl magical mushrooms. Grant is impressed by how many magical mushrooms we have collected. Ars admits he didn't know mushrooms had anything to do with forging, and Grant points out they are the most common catalyst. That place is every craftsman's dream. For mushroom planting, we have a dedicated section of the wall where the sun doesn't hit. Lumberjacks help him a lot, and by inserting fungi into the trunks, he can harvest the mushrooms after a few years. Ars says he doesn't mind Grand using the mushrooms to make weapons, but he shouldn't use them all up because they are his mana reserve. Grant says he understands, and that it's the stock used to make potions, but Ars says he doesn't know how to make one. He eats the mushrooms only to restore mana, and Grant says that's very primitive. He asks if he can make a potion from that mushroom, and Ars is impressed by the man's skills. The man says the best option is to use those mushrooms to make mana potions first, and our companion asks if he can watch the process. Grant agrees and wants the boy to learn how the potion is made and help prepare it. Excited, the man goes to wait for Carl. R leads his brother to bed and tells him he can keep resting. Once he wakes up, he should come find them. It's time to start part 2 of item creation, according to our system. R drinks the mana potion and notices it tastes like tea. It is made the same way by boiling the mushrooms and then breaking them down immediately. Simply put it in a jar of water and stir until well mixed. Grant notes that thanks to the charcoal they managed to make the mushroom boil, and one of our group asks him what kind of weapons the man plans to make from the crystallized marshmallows. He replies he was planning to make armor this time. The MC becomes very excited. Tan the armor while you wash it in a magical potion. It won't be perfect, but it will be better than most armors. Ours is happy that Gran can make so many things. Thank you for visiting his village. Gran tells are excited and should prepare to stay awake for the next few nights. R is disappointed that he won't be able to sleep properly. Ours would have died from working so hard without a recovery spell. At last, the armor is finished. This was made from giant boar leather. Grant says it turned out very well, but it's not our size. The boy says he'll wear it when he grows up. Set his preferences aside, and it will help find people who are failing in those fields. Bito's armor fit. Our plans to use it once it no longer fits his brother. Excited, Grant asks what they should do now. Ars tells them to take a break, and the man has a crisis. Ars asks if he would rather not teach his employees how to make the products. Still, Grant says he prefers making new things. The boy realizes he must find something to spark the man's creativity and asks him to build a building with those bricks. Grandstairs stood by the bricks, unsure what to do. Ars says he can't use more bricks than he has there. The boy wants Grant to build a creative house the young man can use as a mold. The MC tells Grant he wants a spacious building made from those bricks that prioritizes residents. Grant finds the request interesting. He takes on the challenge. RS is also considering testing something. He plans to test the materials forged in the furnace from Valkyrie horns. The main character gathers everything in one place: the mono potion, clay, magic bricks, a Valkyrie's horn, and a giant boar's tusk. Ars plans to make a more durable brick by breaking the one he has, mixing it into the clay, and forming a new one. Drawing on his past life knowledge, he put it to use for that. He then mixes the horns and fangs into the clay and adds the potion. Several samples were made using different percentages of each material. After shaping it, he put it in the mold. He only ended up creating a mountain of flaws. Determined to keep trying, he mixes another batch. This time when he strikes the hammer, a sound echoes and the little boy watches. The brick is undamaged. This is marbled, not the usual brown bricks he makes. With only a catalyst and some materials, he created something of that caliber. He always wanted to break his strength, which was as solid as metal. R reflects on his memories and how his past life emerges from his imagination, which is why he wanted to do it manually. He made a brick as strong as metal in that world. Still, the experiments are not over. R uses his magic while holding the brick. He preserves memory to embellish the brick's structure. Next, he puts both hands on the ground. A new spell now lets him create durable bricks. This lets him make those bricks without the horns and fangs. Even so, it was still far from what the boy imagined Roman roads would be like. He must cast the settling spell to create a Roman road. Despite his efforts, the hard bricks made it impossible. Vehicles do better on a smooth road. Now raise the sides to create sidewalks for pedestrians. When Ars meets Grant again, Grant has built a huge building. The boy notices there is much more space than he expected, and Grant says he added several windows to save on building materials. R managed to finish building the roads, and Grant was very proud of his work. He built a large door and several glass windows. Grant says Carl told him ours had several glass windows he couldn't sell. The boy notes that when Grant creates artistic architecture, he can save materials and add features to the building. The MC is impressed that the man even managed to use physics to create the best possible constructions. He thanks Grant, saying it is much more spacious than the hotel he built. R will pay for the boy's work, and Grant says it will be useful. Grant also requests permission to build his own house. He lived as a traveler, moving from place to place, but he always dreamed of finding a home where he could live without worries and felt it was the best choice. Ars has already received requests from villagers to build houses inside the wall, and he refused them all because it is the Valkyrie's home. It is rare to find a creator as remarkable as Grant, so Ours authorizes him. This is how Grant became the first person to live in his territory. Ours goes home to eat because his mother always cooks very tasty food. With Grant here, there's nothing to worry about. The MC's older brother is engaged, and traditionally the eldest son inherits the house and land, but he is only 14, so it is far too early, and the house is already becoming too small, and if their father dies, the property will go to the older brother, who will then pass it to his eldest son. His family gets along very well, so our family enjoys being with them. Mary asks if Ars would like another serving. The boy had been ready to be independent since he was 5 years old. He asks his mother for another serving and holds out his bowl. He decided to move out of his parents' house. He intends to begin by preparing the land for development. First, he will move the base further south from the wall to the center of the property. Next, he will use his mana to recreate the house that Grant built. He will replace the common bricks with soup-resistant bricks, giving the house a marble-like appearance. With his soup-resistant bricks, he can build a wall 1 kilometer long around his house. He plans to pave the roads from the center to the exits. R plans to place Grant's house south of the village, but he is a very enthusiastic creator. After getting permission, he built his house, and we plan to preserve that design using his authority. The MC also built some ends by the road to Bateau. Wanting to leave home, he is sharing a hotel and renting rooms to field workers. R decided that the forest further north would be the reforestation area where the lumberjacks could work and the den could be built. Matic and the others should be moved to that area. The northern forest still needs to evolve significantly. The central area is R's home and contains the Valkyrie's living quarters and their magical mushroom cultivation. R's does not intend to let the horned Valkyries leave the area. This is how we created the development plan for that land. By the time he finished the partitions and was about to move his house, he was already 9 years old. The merchant seems outraged that R gave part of his lands to a traveler. He asks why the boy never told him anything, and the MC replies that he didn't know a merchant needed land. He says he doesn't intend to travel forever and plans to build his own shop, so he asks us to give him land. Suddenly remembering, the little boy tells the merchant he lied when he said there were no beasts that used magic. The man wonders whether they are, even since he also didn't know Valkyries used magic. R's discovered those creatures have magic and are considered luxury items, but because he had only sold hornless Valkyries until then, they cannot use magic. Then the boy says he will allow the merchant to open his shopping center there. The main character says he'd love it to be a food store, and the merchant says he'll think it over. Then he tells the boy he has something to say. A rumor says a group of dangerous people is in those lands. They're talking about ours. They consider the boy very dangerous. So pure and angelic, the MC feels indignant. He then insists he did nothing dangerous. The merchant says the man suddenly built a huge walled fortress. Seen this way, the nobles who govern the area may be unhappy with that appearance. Tax time is almost here, so the collectors will arrive soon, and ours must be ready to answer all their questions. They didn't ask many questions when they collected taxes last time. The MC asks what the man is saying. He shouts that he shouldn't have to repeat himself. That land will be declared Fontana's property. They will seize it, and if one of ours resists, he could be arrested. Each year taxes are collected. The villagers gather their wheat in a common storehouse, then send a representative to deliver it to the tax collector. One of ours has always paid his taxes in gold because the tax collectors have always come to his house to collect them, so he had to show some hospitality. The Fontana family would now take over R's territory, and any resistance he showed would be just a front for the bourgeoisie. That was what the merchant meant. The tax collector said there are many dangerous people in that region, so ours will also benefit from the royal family's protection, especially because he is raising important creatures. To most people, protecting the Valkyries seems like the best move. Even if their freedom is limited, he will never have to worry about food or war again. Given that he grew up poor in that village, he should be happy. Indifferent, he remembers a wealthy, free life from his past and no longer wants to live in confinement. Suddenly, a loud noise rings out, and the tax collector asks what it is. Realizing the noise came from the stable, R runs to help the Valkyries. The MC hears his brother shouting for it to stay still. Arriving, he is shocked. Carlos was thrown to the ground with a Valkyrie. A young man asks what R wants. He holds a sword and asks whether the MC will stand in his way too. Carl tackled him just as he reached for the creature. Quickly he readied his huge sword to attack R's. R's becomes agitated. Bateau suddenly enters the room and calls for his brother. He's concerned about R's and Carl. The main character starts to wake. Carl is stable but still unconscious. It seems the Valkyrie protected him. A wound on his head isn't too serious. Beta questions how R is. The boy tenses up. He remembers the instant the man raised a sword to finish him. His power awakened at that moment. A quick, precise strike landed on the young man's belly. His blow pierced the man and sent him to the ground. Ars says he's fine. He suffered no scratches. Bateau says he is not referring to his physical injuries, but Ars refuses to discuss it. Bateau says their father will try to talk to the people who are waiting, and he should join them after Carl wakes up. Ars is glad his brother didn't press the issue. Without fear, he used the stone shot on the soldier, killing him instantly. Even the merchant doesn't know how Ars will get out of that. If that soldier came back and reported the incident with the Fontana family, they would probably send the army, and Ars thinks he might just run away. Grant says they can try going to another land, ruled by a different nobility. If they run into trouble with the Fontanas, they will have an ally. They should be glad to keep him around because he can cultivate working monsters. The problem is the care at the new place will be the same as what the Fontana family provided. When a common person asks a noble for freedom, that may be asking too much. Beto says they're crazy, and if the army is coming, they have no choice but to fight back. He doubts we are truly calm about his land being taken. It would make no sense for him after working so hard since childhood. He also killed a soldier. If Carl doesn't survive next time and the soldiers could kill everyone, we must fight. R admits he can't take on an army, no matter how much magic he has. Beto shouts at him to stop being foolish, and the older brother steps in, ready to fight, saying it is his duty to protect the younger. Moreover, he pilots a Valkyrie far more skillfully. Maddox says he will join too, because he cannot stand by while a child who is almost like his grandson is killed. He will stand by our side if the boy decides to fight. Once he began reforestation, the wood managers, furnace workers, charcoal makers, and lumberjacks no longer had to worry about putting food on the table. The R's became the lumberjacks' centerpiece. They will always owe their lives to the boy. Grateful, the little boy hugs Maddox and thanks him. The boy's father takes a deep breath. If everyone is willing to go that far, he says he won't be left behind as a father. As R's father, he decided to stay by his side because protecting his family is his duty. R never expected even one ally to be willing to risk his life. The merchant says if everyone plans to do this, he will help and can gather information from the others. R asks if merchants act only when they expect a reward, and the man says that if the boy leaves, he will no longer be able to sell the creatures. He feels the same way about that old man too. Regardless, he supports our side and should consider how to build support. The boy is very good at thinking about things like that. The MC says when this is all over, he will set aside a large plot of land for the merchant. Freedom is the only reason he enjoys life. That's what it's about. Everyone there is ready to fight for their freedom. He stayed to protect his family, that place, and everyone who lives there. We will fight the nobles for freedom. He must start recruiting people because paid help will probably leave when things get tough, so he needs volunteers. Offer a reward to anyone who defies the nobles, since ours has decided cooperators will receive it, and that will motivate them to risk their lives. His only magic will be improving the soil, leveling it, and building large-scale walls. Those who have followed the boy know how incredible this reward is. He says the naming ceremony can grant that magic, and from then on he will call himself Ars Baruka. The village will be named Baruka, and everyone there will take Baruka as their last name. From then on, they would be known as the Baruka family. Maddox says this is a bit much, but if they plan to take on the Fontana family, they must raise their standing before any negotiation can happen. The boy's father says he's never heard of anyone besides the priest who could conduct the naming ceremony. As far as they know, that's impossible. Still, Ars's trump card is the magic circle. Ars says if they stay by his side, he will name them Baruka. The magic circle ceremony is risky because many factors are unknown. Using the magic circle on someone who already has a name is risky, so he chose to make Baruka a surname rather than change the name. R creates the magic circle in front of him. He then gives Beto a Sira and Tryon the surname Baruka. He treats Madharkin Gran the same way, all in the name of Ars Baruka. Everyone present must be named. Beto's only memory of childhood is being very hungry because the family had to use all their supplies to pay the fees. Meanwhile, his 3-year-old brother began working in the fields. Beto realized he was wasting his energy on something that would never work. We ended up with extremely fertile land. Beto never understood how he did it, but the success was obvious. In fact, he became stronger than Beto himself, despite being 2 years younger. The boy could never understand how ours became so strong. At that moment, his brother explained his method without hesitation. Beto didn't understand everything because it's very difficult, but it seems the trick is to build up mana in the body. He trained to build strength for working in the fields, while ours was busy doing maintenance to expand the place. People started to look shocked when they learned we were maintaining the Asherah fields. They also wanted the boy to help. At that time, Ars said he couldn't because he had other commitments. After this incident, everyone in the village began calling him a bad person. Beto heard people saying that one of ours only cared about himself and was a bad person, even though the adults didn't show it. They planned to get rid of the boy. Ars is almost better than Beto in a fight, but he usually doesn't know what the boy is thinking. Even so, ours remains his younger brother. He decided to confront anyone who spoke badly of him and intended to hurt him. He felt guilty leaving his mother worried after coming home hurt a few times. He still couldn't let anyone who tried to hurt his brother go unpunished. The MC realizes he's focusing too much on the punch and needs to use his waist and hips more to fight better. Outraged by the mockery, Bito stood up for his brother. Ars knew how to use his body well, and Bito had tried to fight him several times. Bito trained with the motivation Ars gave him to never lose again to opponents his age or younger. Growing stronger, he gained followers. Meanwhile, Ars tended eggs to hatch more monsters and supply them to the nobility. He even killed a giant boar that threatened the village. Bito admires his brother but refuses to lose to him. He's been practicing galloping on the Valkyrie while using a sword. That made him stronger. He wants to be able to defeat a giant boar and not lose to the knights. This is all because he is our older brother. Magic surrounds Bito. Exhausted, Arts falls to the ground. That magic is too strong for him. He is in shock. Grant says it was incredible magic, and Bito says ours is very wonderful. The little boy watches and says he seems to have succeeded. That can make Bito even stronger. The boy wants them to persuade the villagers to join their cause and warn everyone that the nobles plan to seize their land and everything they own. They are also planning to kill Karl and Ars. They will fight to defend their rights and protect themselves from the nobles' tyranny. The boy hopes he can count on everyone there. Anyone who rises with their family will receive their magic and part of their land. Ars wants to appeal to their emotions to show that helping him will be worthwhile. Bito leaves right away, saying he'll take care of it, and Maddox says he'll talk to the other lumberjacks. Trying to get more information, the MC talks to the trio. One man offers to search for intelligence on the enemy troops. Reaching out to Ars, he says he'll leave it with him and warns the boy to be careful. Tryon looks very serious. He warns us to be careful not to die, and the boy squeezes his hand back in agreement. The boy never expected to hear that remark, and being from a farming family in front of the nobles felt very out of place. Still, he needs a backup plan in case he cannot gather enough people. They usually send 50 people to war at a time. By comparison, 78 people is a lot. Maddox says the lumberjacks will help too, and because they are strong, they can do a lot. Bito is very popular with young people and managed to attract them. Despite that, he keeps complaining even though he was the one who gave them jobs. A major factor is present. The young man tells Mary he is going to Ars' place and asks Ira to look after their mother. Someone asks if everything is okay and talks with Hector. Hector says they'll be fine as long as Ars stays with them. He is the boy's brother who married too early. It was mainly because she was the chief's daughter. Ars thinks her father probably intended to give her land if she married Hector. Baruka village has been transformed. Ar used his magic circle power on everyone who showed up there, and people are happy because it will make farm work much easier. They are very grateful to us, but the boy is exhausted. Bito asks his brother if he's finished naming everyone. The MC says he is, but only because of the recovery potion. Bito asks what the outfit is, and Ar says Hector brought it for him. Their mother made it and had planned to give it to him for his birthday, but she changed her mind because of the war coming soon. Agitated, Bito says it's time to go and catch the enemies by surprise, but Ars urges his brother to wait a bit longer. Bito asks what they should do at that moment, since waiting feels pointless, and Ar says to wait for the merchant to return with information. The boy realizes it's impossible to protect 100 people along a 4-kilometer stretch of wall. Those walls were built to stop giant boars, not human intruders. His fighting ability is probably stronger than the farmers. Ar hurries and says they must move forward. Bito is very excited. Then the boy says they still won't go to the city. They will relocate to nearby villages south of here. The goal is to explain why they want to confront the nobles, since many people might see the war as unnecessary. Despite this, many people still suffer from hunger and hypothermia. They resent the nobles who collect heavy taxes while ignoring their hunger. Ar approaches the other village. Everyone is very agitated and unwilling to hear what he has to say. The boy's father says any village would react that way if someone arrived armed like that. Everyone regards our village with hatred. Ar notices they entered the village's territory without saying why they were there. Then someone calls out to him. A boy wielding a huge sword asks what they want. Ar notices that a sword his size is rare. Farmers use tritons as weapons, and it's rare for any of them to carry a real sword. Even economically, most people would choose a weapon that uses less metal instead of a large sword. Ars's father recognizes the boy as Vargas. Regarded as a local hero, he earned his reputation in several wars. He left but now seems to be back. Things are starting to get difficult if our side doesn't come up with something soon. Beto shouts that the Fontana family is extending its tyranny over the residents of Baruka, saying they will not submit to the nobles' oppression and urging everyone there to join them. Vargas aims his sword at Beto. Still, the boys wore armor made from giant boar leather. He also rides a Valkyrie. Nobody will believe the boy is the second son of a farming family. Vargas applies significant pressure, and Beto's equipment is nearly as effective. They can now speak as equals. Vargas asks Beto whether he is the great man from Baruka who defeated the boars. Beto says it's not him and claims it's ours. He then says his younger brother faced those giant creatures. Vargas says that's a funny joke. He says he could laugh about it for hours and tells the small group to go home. Beto becomes stressed, shouts for them to cooperate, and says Vargas should take responsibility instead of playing with his fantasies. They start shouting at each other, both clearly upset. This will probably end in a fight. Ars steps in with his attack. He hurls pebbles at the ground at high speed. Then he asks everyone to put their weapons down. Our outcome is fully determined. Then he says he's only there for a peaceful conversation. Vargas is impressed the attack used magic. He warns that if the boy plans to attack, he'll take him down. Vargas runs toward us, and the MC is worried because he thought the boy would stop. He runs very fast. If one of ours doesn't stop his movement somehow, he'll be in danger. The main character lands a pebble attack near Vargas. The man dodges and counters with his sword, and Ars can hardly believe the man blocked Ars's attack and moved without hesitation. Vargas concluded that Ars must turn his hand toward where he will launch the attack. If this keeps up, that will be a serious problem. The young man realizes everyone in the village owes Vargas. One of ours keeps trying to attack him. Repeatedly. His father says Vargas is not someone he can defeat this way. At this rate, he'll waste all his mana. The young man aimed at the spot he thought Vargas would leave undefended. He hoped the area would have the greatest impact. Then he struck Vargas squarely. Still, the man cut across its path and ran toward it. Vargas stops directly in front of ours. He has now caught the boy, and the MC can hardly believe Vargas took no damage. This could be the ability to become more resistant. His physical enchantment can achieve the same effect. It seems Vargas gained the ability to boost his defense in battle. Ars smiles with understanding and gets ready to use his power again. A solid blow lands on Vargas's chest, causing the man to fly. Vargas' sword breaks and drops to the ground. That astonishes people. Art says the winner has been chosen. Vargas must turn himself in. Then the guy asks what hit him. A man is lying on the ground. R explains it was a shot of pebbles, so he kept using those attacks against the counterattack. RS is very happy to learn this. Someone with abilities similar to his. Also, he is pleased to have tested the efficiency of his strike against people with real battle experience. Vargas held his sword in front of him to act as a shield to reduce damage. Now someone like Vargas is needed. Ars reaches out and the man takes his hand and stands. The man says he surrenders and asks us not to harm the villagers. Those are not our intentions. It's worth considering because his people are all armed. R says he has no intention of hurting anyone. His only aim is to join them and fight the nobles. Vargas pledges to fight alongside our forces. Elsewhere in the kingdom, someone blames his negligence for the disturbance. He will now lead his army to Villa Baruka. He vows to do this for the Fontana family. A brick is formed. Vargas never imagined he could use magic that way. Ars gave the name Baruka to everyone in the village who wanted to join him. A sense of unity is forming among those people, despite the unexpected fight with Vargas. As a result, he showed his fighting skill and united everyone behind the same cause. R has defeated Vargas, the hero. Our side must be much stronger so they can defeat the nobles if they join him. Some people probably plan to abandon him if things went against them, but after the fight with Vargas that changed. Everyone feels they must fight for their freedom. Vargas asks the general what to do next. Ars doesn't understand the general, and Vargas says he is talking about him. Since he recruited all those people, he's the general there. R says people only came because of Vargas, so Vargas should be the general. For him, the people by his side are very important, and R chose to distance himself from his village to protect his friends as well. Going to the neighboring village was the best choice. R plans to camp there. A river runs between Baruka and Fontana's capital. R notes that the Fontana family must pass through that area to reach the village of Baruka. Because the water is violent, only a few places can be crossed. R says it's time to set up camp and shouts for everyone to level the ground because he'll build the platforms. It has become a village of small houses. More than 100 people are coming, but it should still accommodate everyone. Now we must build defensive walls. People use the power to make walls. It is much easier when everyone can use that magic without one person having to teach it. When R uses the naming ceremony's power, all the magic knowledge in his mind passes to others. Even so, some people cannot create walls. They cannot do it or process the information. R notices the same thing happened at the road settlement, and on closer inspection, he sees those people have low mana. Wall and road creation uses far more mana than other spells. When R tried to cast spells that exceeded his mana, he failed because the information was not processed correctly. R's doesn't know whether the limit comes from the receiver or his magic circle, but people can only acquire the magic that their mana can handle. The boy now wants to test whether their ability to cast spells changes when they gain mana, and Grant says he has something to show them. He made a custom armored vest for him. The piece turned out amazing, even though it was made at the last minute. After the battle with Vargas, Ars realized it was risky to be on the front lines without the right equipment. Vargas swings the sword and calls it too shiny for his taste. He won't decide what to use on the battlefield. Ars gave the more durable swords to those closest to him because they understood his requests and could instruct the other villagers. R has built a solid foundation and fixed the equipment problem. Only one thing remains. Our side is in shock. Try saying the enemy has 500 people. Baruka has about 50 people, and they face an enemy force 10 times larger, 500 troops, which is alarming. Grant observes that the fact that our side built that base and brought all those people there has already exceeded the Fontana family's expectations. Still, the gap in numbers is substantial, and they cannot hold the line without reinforcements. R says they must fight in open battle. Vargas agrees because breaking the defense would leave very few people. The Fontana family sees themselves as just stubborn farmers. In reality, it's a group that can use magic. Injuring the enemy enough to force an advance gives them one chance to win, so they must set an ambush. In his past life playing video games, he used those terms, but now they feel too heavy to use in real life. Valkyrie moves toward the boy. Valkyrie bites him. It looks like she's trying to revive her friend. Ars says he is counting on her, and they will stay side by side until they gain their freedom. The boy will do anything to achieve a single goal. Farmers stand before the enemies. Typical of nobles, they have many metal weapons, giving them a clear advantage in the boy's plan. Troop numbers match the merchant's prediction. The farmers spot someone approaching and alert everyone. A man rides a hornless Valkyrie. The man begins shouting to all the residents of the village of Baruka. He says one of ours has committed a crime. He defied the nobility's orders and wounded the tax collector. Charged with protecting the land, they cannot be benevolent. The residents of Baruka should not have to carry the burden of sin, and from Ars Hector asks whether the boy will simply listen in silence. The man shouts that if everyone surrenders and lays down their weapons, they can return to their villages and live normal lives. Hector warns the villagers will give in if they keep listening to that, and it will end badly. Now it's time to give the pre-battle speech. R notices that the battle has already begun. It's unclear whether he can deliver a speech that lifts the group's morale while weakening the enemy. He knows how to calm everyone in that space. A voice is a sound produced by the vocal cords. Focusing his mana on his vocal cords amplifies their vibrations and gives him a loud, clear voice. Ars reports the Fontana family wrote a paper declaring the boy owns the land of Baruka. Seeing the city's growth, they decided to take it from the people. Their goal is to steal the land and everything on it from them. They even plan to take the residents of Baruka. Ars cloaks his voice in mana and sends strength into the hearts of the citizens present. They must protect their belongings by their own strength, and Baruka's resistance will not give in to the nobles' tyranny. They will no longer allow the nobles to use those evil acts to kill anyone they want out of anger. They will no longer live as puppets, and the battle begins. Now is the time for them to reclaim their freedom. Enemy forces are stunned to see the farmers actually coming toward them. Their captain orders them to hold formation and stay in control. R advances at high speed on his Valkyrie. One of ours shouts as the man begins to leave. The boy is not a fury. Next, he tells them not to interrupt him. One punch knocked several men to the ground. Cultivation fought so well on horseback that he fashioned a handle to use as a weapon. Most important, he used the physical enchantment, which helps a lot. Despite it all, he likely became stronger. Our hero spins his staff in the air and warns them to get out of his way if they don't want to be sent flying. The MC seized the moment and advanced at the right time, leaving the enemy no chance to prepare. Seeing a child fight adults would unsettle them, so he did not need to confront those brought there by force. R wants to face only the commander on the hornless Valkyrie in that battle. Someone calls our number and asks him to stop. He's going too far on his own. Even on horseback, he remains unusually far from his army. Because of improved physical conditioning and pebble shots, the soldiers are far superior to the enemy. Even as a child, he managed to increase his strength, probably because ours has been absorbing mana from the air since he was little. The others only used the mana already inside them, so it had to be weaker. Still, the size of mana power directly affects its quality. That's likely why few people can get along with him. R calls Bito and Vargas. He tells his father and Madoc to lead the others. They want to reach the armed force concentrated in the center. R's, Bito, and Vargas are the pillars of the Baruka army, just as that armed group is likely the pillar of that enemy army. Still, our side believes the attack he knows won't harm them. Those soldiers have far more mana than the others and stand with their shields raised in front. His notices show that they are trying to stop him. He plans to invade. The moment he hits the soldiers' shields, Arskit's staff slips from his hand. He feels nervous because he's very exposed. He draws his sword. Several soldiers hit the ground hard, and the others shouted at them not to lose to any child. R notices they didn't fly far and are much weaker than he expected. They have great equipment and plenty of mana. The mono sound quality remains unchanged. Arsis Visca's mana is significantly better. The thickness of the mana also greatly affects its power. The main character shouts to Vargas that it will be easy if each of them kills 10 soldiers, but Vargas is desperate. As Bito complains about our decisions, someone draws a sword. The enemy general misjudged the boy. He tries to take R by surprise, but the boy defends himself. The man says the boy's rebellion stops there. The man says it's been a while since they last saw each other, and asks how ours has been doing. Because he was only a small child when they met, ours probably won't remember. Raymond is the head of the Fontana family that rules that land. We are outraged that this person is the leader of that army. He ordered the Valkyrie's horns cut off, so ours cannot forget. He also gave us the right to that land. That same person is now trying to take everything from them, Raymond, the Fontana family representative. Even the tax collector's message included his name. People ask how he can take from those who have nothing. Bito shouts to his brother to calm down and look around. The army is mobilizing again. Raymond apparently showed up just to distract us for a while. The MC realizes he wasted the moment he had managed to get for himself. All enemy soldiers point their hands at them and begin casting a spell. Each noble family is granted a unique magical power. Even their position of power depends entirely on the magic they control. No matter how strong someone is, they cannot fight alone. In a ritual called the naming ceremony, nobles transfer part of their magic to those who will fight in battle. Magic is dangerous, so giving it to large populations is unsafe. They have already experienced betrayal. To receive magic, a person must meet certain conditions. The first step is to appear in battle several times, collect items, and listen to the nobility. Stage 2 is to begin serving as a knight and obtain approval. If you are an inept magician or cannot use magic in battle, your family will strip you of your last name and banish you. Having evaded the system in Baruka, ours is now about to deal with it. The Fontana family's magical power. Raymond insists they carry out every attack. Several ice spikes shoot toward the trio. Surrounded, they cannot defend against every threat at once. Vargas is serious. Now it's time to trust the other to help deflect the attacks. He used his mana and physical enchantment. We must have enough capability to stop those attacks. He brings Mona into view, and now everything seems to move in slow motion. Splitting mana between two different uses is difficult, but he can handle it. The ice launch should operate the same way as the pebble launch. Ars notes that Vargos likely deflected his attack because he has fought those soldiers before. Vargos is striking the chest. R grows worried. He asks if the young man is okay. Despite his toughness and a resilient body and sword, he can still take damage. If Vargos gives in now, he will get Beto and Ars caught. That's likely why the man is risking his body. Ars is very pleased with Vargos' performance. Meanwhile, Beto fights the enemies fiercely, letting out small screams. Earlier, when Raymond tore the Valkyrie's horns off, Ars couldn't do anything. Now he has the strength. The soldiers are getting exhausted. The protagonist also has loyal companions. He's not the person he used to be. They will win their own freedom. At last, the attack stops. Beto says they did a good job. Looking back, Beto sees his Valkyrie is injured. He angrily dismounts from the creature. Then he charges the enemy, demanding to know how they injured his companion. We are calling on Vargas to cover Beto. Despite his strength, the young man cannot take on an entire army by himself. Beto unleashes all his fury on the enemy. Striking one of the soldiers with his sword, he forces the man to defend himself. Still, Beto's power is enough to break the soldier's weaponry. We are impressed by that. He never saw his brother's strength because he always compared him to the other kids in the village. Knowing those soldiers have low mana, it's good that Beto can handle them. Everyone is stunned by his brother's wild power while Vargas covers him. They don't seem to need his help. Beto's distraction left very few knights in front of them. It's time for us to put an end to that. Raymond Mox says it's surprising that ours has magical weapons. He asks how the boy did it, and the MC replies that it's none of his business, yet Raymond still thinks he's coming out on top. The man replies that he will not lose his focus because of those surprises. He was just lamenting that he can no longer ask our side to back down. Raymond's mana is far stronger than his knights. Ars did not see Raymond as a commander who set an example for the knights. Also, the sword appears extremely dangerous. It clearly has far more mana than Ars's sword. Raymond says it's a pity, but the boy must leave this world now. Valkyrie moves in. Ar only needs one strike. He will attack Raymond using all of his mana. Ar lands the attack, but is caught off guard when Raymond's sword turns into an ice sword. The man tells the boy he will demonstrate the power of the spiritual ice sword. Their sword regenerates with ice, putting ours at a disadvantage. No matter how often he breaks Raymond's sword, it always reforms. The man strikes Valkyrie. Will be caught unprepared then. After Raymond's violent attack, the boy is growing tired and burning through his mana as Raymond keeps closing in on him. Ours drops to the ground. Apparently, there are very powerful people in that world. Raymond advances toward our position. He holds the sword poised over Valkyrie. The MC cannot escape it. He launches an attack at Raymond. Valkyrie flinches after its paw is hit. Raymond's sword drops to the ground. He falls alongside Valkyrie. Now both are fighting on equal terms, though he remains much calmer than ours. If the MC lets this chance pass, he may never get another. This is the end of everything. R brings his sword down toward Raymond, but one of his knights stops him. The knights tell Raymond to leave. The MC fights them, yelling for them to move out of his way. Still, they're very coordinated. To get through those knights, he needs far more power than that. R's knocks knocked one of them to the ground. As expected, the knights are very strong. Panting, the MC keeps his sword raised and manages the strain by redistributing his mana. In time, everyone is defeated. Our supply has run out. Everything feels too heavy, but he still isn't finished. He must not let his guard down now that Raymond has shown up. A sword fight begins. The man says ours appears to be nearly out of stamina. Ending his useless resistance will be enough. R says Raymond must yield at that moment. The ground suddenly begins to shake. Raymond is stunned by what's happening. R says he fell into his trap. Tryon tells everyone to listen carefully and says they only need to follow Hugh. Then everyone moves forward. This will be incredible. Ars knew an ordinary surprise attack would not be enough. Short on personnel, he had his trump card. A staggering group of Valkyries moves toward Raymond. He can hardly believe it's happening. R orders all the Valkyries to act. Next, they use the magic from their horns. They all open fire on the enemies at once. The soldiers can hardly believe those creatures are magical. Circular horses surge forward, destroying everything. People fear the Valkyries because they use the same magic as Baruka. Raymond finds it hard to believe this is true. He then doubts that Ars really thinks he will accept being defeated in such a ridiculous way. That was exactly what Ars needed. He strikes at Raymond with his sword. That battle ended because of him. Raymond is finished. Anyone can call that their decisive victory. Ars defeated the Fontana family's representative. That the soldiers pull back. Announcing that Baruka is free, the MC shouts for his companion's victory cry. Ars's allies begin celebrating as the enemies flee. The true Valkyrie arrives to talk with the Ars. He tells her he's fine and thanks her for caring. In the end, Baruka won the battle. Tryon was terrified. He asks Ars if she knows what else shocked him. Using physical enchantments while a top Valkyrie gallops. Only Bito and Ars can gallop on Valkyries. The merchant asks what the boy will do now, knowing the battle with the Fontana family is not over. Our side just wants to rest now. He knows Fontana's weapons are stronger than theirs. All the weapons left on the battlefield were gathered. About 200 of them switched to Baruka or Linda, giving those sides an advantage in the war, but the main factor in their victory was information. Vargas's approach wants to engage with ours. The boy asks if they're ready to talk, and Vargas says yes. They fought side by side back when they were ordinary people. Ours have captured a few people, and as prisoners of war, they could provide valuable information, while Fontana is known to have over 5,000 soldiers. They will have no merit if they can't handle 2 random villages. They don't want to fight, but must show their strength so opponents won't risk a fight. That's why our side decided to build a castle there. Castles are not only useful for defense, but also symbols of power. Science is weak in that world, possibly because magic exists. Even so, all the castles follow a simple design. With a river nearby, they could build a moat. Gran brightens and says a moat is a great idea, but their walls are not sturdy enough for a castle. To build a castle wall, include a staircase that lets people climb to the top and a watchtower for observation. After they build a tower, they can copy others and keep their memories. Next, build roads to allow them to receive supplies from the villages. Build a wall around the village of Linda and station a Valkyrie in each tower to stay informed. Begin by grouping people into teams based on their magic level. Grant is excited to build a castle. The man intends to make the castle so extraordinary that it will amaze the nobility. The renovation is complete, and the tower now reaches 30 meters. A moat runs along the outside of the wall. They also built walls and watchtowers for the village of Linda. There is also a road that connects the villages. We started by working on everything outside the castle. Beidou says more people want to join them. Because of the new road, it takes just 1 day to travel from the castle to the villages. As a result, more people joined. Beidou also has a message for us. Father Paulo wants to speak with him. R returns to Baruka after being away for a while. He was determined not to see the priest. The man greets the young man and says he can see the boy is doing many different things. While he was away, Ars asked what the priest was talking about. Then the man says the boy is stressing him out. Ask questions to confirm whether the priest is referring to the naming ceremony. Paulo admits using magic to name many people without the church's permission, and now he has gone too far and needs to learn the truth about that naming magic. Only people who can draw on their own mana can use magic. They are called mages and are rare. Long ago, a tale tells of a mage who learned to use his power simply by speaking. That word-based magic became known as a spell. People who use spells are called sorcerers. Finally, some people invented naming, which lets ordinary people use magic. They are called wizards. The wizard said naming was a skill the gods gave him. This is the principle of the sacred church Paulo belongs to. The wizard had a different goal in mind. Using his power, he sent his magic away from the church's light and summoned everyday magic that could not be aggressive or put anyone at risk. Naming is essentially a parental bond that creates a magical hierarchy, and children can use their parents' spells, while parents absorb a small portion of the child's mana. Arya thinks that might be why her mana has been growing so much. Paulo says this is a secret technique the Rs used without permission. The boy now understands the church's position on it. The MC grows worried and decides his life is over. Stopping Paulo, he tells him to wait a minute and explains the ceremony was to promote them to knights. This shows he's not just acting without permission and that others are involved, so Paulo may show mercy. The priest then says the church always oversees the naming ceremony for the nobles. Only with the church's help can the nobility trace the path of mana, because without the church no one could stop them from going out and destroying everything. The nobles gain more powers and soldiers and can also acquire enormous mana. Power is dangerous if it is not used wisely. The church opposes withholding the money people earn, and Ars is outraged that Paulo is profiting from it. Paulo then says they are not taking money, they are simply accepting what God sends out of gratitude. This is how the church keeps peace. That means Ours is not only opposing the church but also hurting it financially. R reflects on how Mona moves from being a child to being their father. These fathers have fathers of their own. Ars asks whether Paulo's mana is increasing. The man agrees because he named Ars. Paulo says the cause was Ars's mana quality, but he cannot explain it alone. Once the main character named a Valkyrie. From then on, everyone born could use his magic. It can only mean that all Valkyries are somehow connected to them. Some of the Valkyrie's mana flows to Father Paulo through him. The boy asks if this is a pyramid scheme. Paulo says his rise in mana led to his promotion to bishop, and he now governs both the church and the whole region. Bishops have far more status than priests, so Paulo is living much more comfortably. Ars questions who gave him that promotion. The man says no one. He suddenly learned a new spell and realized he'd been promoted. Now he can use healing magic. R notes that this is similar to the people he named who cannot use certain spells. People can't use those spells because they don't know they exist, but anyone with enough mana suddenly learns them. It has to feel like God himself gave that great power. Paulo says he will now get to the point he wanted. Why didn't the boy leave his future with him? They must observe our current situation. He led farmers into rebellion, attacked the neighboring village, killed the Fontana family's representative, captured 6 knights, and is illegally occupying land. R says Paulo is doing nothing but bad things. The bishop says he stole the church's secret during the naming ceremony and has spread hostile magic. R has just started a war against the Fontana family, but he has no excuse for the naming ceremony. The boy asks if he can solve this by joining the church, but Paulo says he's already out because he used magic aggressively. The MC asks whether the priest means he has no options, and Paulo says the boy's main problem at that moment is the dispute with the church. Now Paulo needs to decide what to tell them next. He is willing to say he named the village of Baruka. That way Ars would not have bypassed him to do it, and they could keep working. The MC asks why the priest would do that, and Paulo says he will explain what it represents. He gained his rank because of the mana Ars has, and he will likely be in trouble if the boy dies. Ars used the naming ceremony to increase his strength, and he wants to keep doing it under the radar. Paulo is willing to help us as much as he can. This included some inaccuracies in reporting events that happened to the church. They can't ignore what's happening. Our actions are already known, and the boy will have to deal with this soon. In this situation, who will have to pay them their money? The boy realizes he cannot be helped. When naming the village, nobles are expected to give tips. If he had only asked Bishop Paulo to name it, the story would make no sense because he would get no reward, so the story asks how much he must pay. Paulo writes the numbers on paper and shows us the total. The boy is shocked by the amount because he spent his life saving it. The man doubts the boy can pay because that sum is out of reach for most people. Still, Ars won't spend his entire fortune just to settle a dispute with the church. He doesn't trust everyone. Does he need Paulo to arrange an agreement with the Fontana family? The man agrees they still need to deal with the family. Paulo asks us to imagine ourselves as members of the Fontana family and identify their priority at that moment. The boy asks if it's him, and Paulo says he still hasn't understood anything. They want to know where Baraka and his army got their power, because few people can use magic that naturally. Far fewer can pass that power on to others. People will likely assume a rival noble family-funded and empowered the farmers to start that rebellion. Paulo will say this noble does not exist. He will say the citizens themselves decided to do that and that he appointed the Baruka farmers. There are questions about whether that will be dangerous for him and what he will do. Paulo says a baptism into the performing arts is already enough. Following his promotion, he is the bishop responsible for all the churches in the territory of Fontana. He'll likely be able to handle things with the Fontana family. He'll need to do grassroots work, which would be hard without our donation. The boy observes that money makes the world go round, and that Baruch's fate rests with the priest. Elsewhere in the city, many people are talking about Paulo becoming the new bishop. Also responsible for the Baruka church, he appointed hours. The boy says he never expected a bishop to cover for him. It shows how important RS is, with the church even willing to take risks for him. While Rs is organizing the troop, he is called. The bishop comes up in a cart, worried because he did everything he was supposed to for the Fontana family. As expected, both parties must sign the agreement in person. They need to go to the palace they plan to visit. This will be an informal discussion on neutral ground for both parties. Rs chose one of his towers built in the middle of the road because no one was around. Having climbed the whole staircase, the boy opens the door. The other insists he must be ours. Oddly, he is impressed that it's only a child. The main character is offended by the man's mockery and asks him who he is. Standing, he introduces himself as Carlos Fontana. He now leads the Fontana family. Our man is indignant that Paulo didn't tell him this. Carlos Fontana says the bishop has already told him everything. He suggests they ignore the small revolt and stop fighting, but Rs refuses to agree so easily. He says he has his own requirements. Carlos Fontana smiles. He refuses to kneel before a noble and even makes demands. By extending a paper to ours, Carlos Fontana says this is exactly how the leader of a rebellion should be and offers those terms. R takes the contract to look it over. Carlos Fontana says he doesn't mind leaving the land of Baruka to us if he stops that fight. The contract says one of ours must serve the Fontana family, and in return he receives knighthood, a favorable arrangement. The boy doubts whether Carlos Fontana will keep that promise. He says a few details still need work, but it's official. Had he done something that horrendous, his subordinates would have abandoned him. R asks whether Carlos Fontana knows that R killed Carlos's representative, and whether Carlos finds it strange that he wants R as his subordinate. Then Carlos Fontana says he is very grateful for how things have worked out. Laughing, he says ours did a great job killing Raymond. Our guy probably knows what he's talking about. Still a child, he could not forget the experience of war. 3 years ago, his father, the former head of the family, died and he took over the role. When it came to claiming the throne, people showed no restraint and most were willing to kill the chief. As a child, Carlos Fontana was appointed lord, while a knight from the Barbaros family was elected to govern until he came of age. He acknowledges that Raymond did a good job protecting him until he came of age, but while in office, he witnessed the death of a distinguished soldier from the family. The representative position was originally given to knights from families, but he took it for himself. Raymond handled the Valkyrie gift delivered by Rs. That also means he organized the Fontana family's contracts. Carlos Fontana agrees, saying the small slip was the opportunity to destroy him. The MC notes Raymond was also responsible for the mistake of giving the land to the boy. Carlos Fontana says he didn't expect one of ours to kill Raymond. Now he controls the Fontana family. Even so, the boy says it's not that simple, and he's working hard to unite different powers in Fontana after the end of Raymond. Carlos Fontana points at ours. He adds that Raymond's family and his subordinates are living peacefully, but although they obey now, they will probably rebel sooner or later. We will be responsible for ending that. Although Carlos Fontana is the head of his family, he has little support, and he can be stopped if someone holds the power of the Barucha family. R faced Carlos Fontana as an equal, without fear. To him, the boy does not have a farmer's mindset. R clearly has something he wants to protect. The boy will likely not back down no matter what happens. Carlos Fontana needs to offer the boy something of value. The Baruka people's lives and the health the boy has built. Carlos Fontana is determined to make sure he gets his freedom. In return, our sword must serve him. Although his position is not secure, he remains a lord, and we are grateful that Carlos Fontana does not change him. He is willing to accept that to keep a good relationship with Paulo. The boy then says he has a few conditions to add. Their meeting lasted until night. The priest lays a paper on the table. It is the item they agreed on. Now Paulo asks if both agree. Carlos Fontana and R say yes. Paulo asks one of ours to step forward. He asks whether the boy promises to serve and support Carlos Fontana, and the MC says yes. Then the priest asked Carlos Fontana to come forward. He asks whether the young man will promise to make our knight his so we can help each other fight our enemies. The young man agrees. On that occasion, Ars Niels met with Carlos Fontana before his appointment. At that moment, the priest uses his power. Carlos Fontana tells Ars Baruka he has now been appointed his knight. The boy is now known as Ars von Barucha. After signing a man to contract, Carlos Fontana is much stronger at controlling his territory, which should help when pressuring Raimo's faction. New powers have been gained, such as ice casting. He can now use the Fontana family's magic. With everything settled, Ours can finally return to his ordinary life. Grant asks whether the boy has no desire to do anything with his own land. The boy managed not just Baruka and Linda, but the whole castle north of the river. At first, Carlos Fontana wanted to deal only with Baruka, but after a long argument in which they insisted they could not leave Vargas or the castle behind, he gave in. Ars tells Grand he wants the guy to do something, and it's the most important thing right now. Then he says he needs to raise money, because he can't afford to fulfill the man's fantasies. Authority to govern and impose taxes and judgments carries obligations. When he collects taxes, he must pay the Fontana family. Moreover, if they ask for it, the boy must give it up. At that moment, Ours does not even have the money to pay for his citizens' food. Ar cannot help showing his loyalty to the territory he worked so hard to conquer, and he needs to find a quick way to make money. He sets up an internal administration. A girl closes a book and looks sad. The maid asks what is going on with Lilina. Smiling, the girl says it's nothing. Next, she asks the maid to fetch the next book she'll read. Raymond, who had secured and defended his territory since she was young, died in a rebellion. Carlos Fontana has always been very talented, and she believes he will manage his territory well. Still, Raymond's powerful knights will find the culprit and are uneasy about Carlos Fontana's inexperience. Even if he's smart, he still needs to know how to navigate politics. Realizing she also needs to get organized for what lies ahead. Ars says he will name those responsible for the Baruka kingdom. Merchant Tryon Baruka will handle their internal duties because he can read, write, and do math. Bito and Vargas will serve as captains. Lacking funds to build an army, their first priority is training the people already there. Ars' father will oversee security and establish a simple policy to keep the peace. This lets one of Ours ask his father to keep magic users under control during peacetime. Matic, along with the leaders of the two villages that joined, will be his judges. No clear law exists there, but people will likely listen to them. The MC wants those three to make judgments on his behalf. Meanwhile, Grandmus continues as a builder, but he is not good at organizing, so we need to find someone to keep an eye on him. Meanwhile, we plan to hire people to entertain the rest of the population. When the castle roads were built, the workers not only followed his orders, but also suggested better ideas than his original plan. This shows they can be intelligent, even if they cannot read. The boy plans to make them work harder than ever for the kingdom of Baruka. That's how the administration of the territory of Baruka began. The merchant complains that Ours is a monster. First, the boy took all his precious money. After paying the church, he ran out of money and asked Tryon to make an investment. Bishop Paulo was surprised he had saved so much money. This means that if the two go into business together, they will make others run like bandits. Ars tells Tryon to treat the money as payment for the good land he received, and Tryon agrees to record it as a legitimate donation for his leader. Noting the boy's good skills, he still worries that he may not cope after suddenly rising from commoner to noble. Ar has formed a mutual relationship with Carlos Fontana, but Carlos's subordinates and the other nobles dislike him. The boy could be quickly drafted and sacrificed in the middle of the battlefield. Many urged Carlos Fontana to retake the territory. Simply making his land perform well will not work. His task is to make the kingdom of Baruka the strongest power in the region. To do that, the first step is to make deals to raise the money he needs. The boy tells them to open the market. Start by complaining that no one in their right mind would travel that far just to buy a few items. Since the nobles always trade with their neighbors, going elsewhere is difficult. Each territory charges a toll to pass, and dealing with the guilds is another difficulty. The guilds charge steep fees on everything, from what you sell to where you sell it. If you run your business outside the guild, you can be arrested. Ar asks whether this will hinder the flow of money and the market. He then proposes creating a free market where people can enter and negotiate. The merchant says things are still difficult because they must pay fees in every territory they pass through to get there. We want to build a city and a system where merchants can trade on their own terms. Start by making a simple path from there to the city of Fontana, and he already has a basic bridge that can be upgraded into a road. Constructing a bridge was already included in the agreement. They will accomplish two things at once. Bito doubts the peace agreement mentioned building that road for merchants. The boy says the original plan was meant for the armies. This lets them reach Baruka if they feel threatened. The boy says another option is to keep the soldiers stationed on the far side of the river. Negotiating the castle north of the river with Carlos Fontana was the hardest part, and he finally agreed. Still, he did not want to be on Carlos Fontana's bad side. His aim is to turn the castle north of the river into a city connecting Fontana and Baruka. Ours told farm owners to use magic to improve their land. Meanwhile, others worked on building roads. A few days later, the road shortened travel time between Baruka and Fontana. When everyone finishes, Ars thanks them and says they did a good job. With no more roads to build, people start to worry about how they'll earn a living. Without farms, they don't know where to begin. Ar notes that a lord must ensure his people have food. When people can meet their basic needs, crime decreases. A lord must also keep the peace. Ar builds a housing complex in the village of Baruka. People are impressed. A boy says anyone who wants can live there. Ars cleared a small area beyond the wall and built several little houses. The boy says he's already arranged work for them so they can earn their own money. The work involves only two tasks. First, making super hard bricks. Producing those super hard bricks will be Baruk's specialty. Second is the growth of magic mushrooms. The key step is to secure a source of mana. Done correctly, they can harvest a substantial crop and enjoy the mushrooms for a long time. Everyone is impressed by what Ours can do. At first, Ars wanted to keep the secret of the magical mushroom to himself. His profits will drop, but that should be better in the long run. We must maximize their chances of surviving the war. With enough mana, he can use magic without worrying about it. This is how Baruka got its specialties. Now we need to make a deal with the farmers. First, inspect the land. Seeing Bateau confused, the boy explains it's about the land's size and how many harvests it can yield. Bateau says he does not want to do it because he prefers to train his little soldiers, and Ars agrees it is not his style. With the land leveled and improved, the odds of a much bigger harvest this year are very high. That means he can collect a large amount in taxes. The survey aims to find how much each parcel of land produces, which will let him estimate the taxes. Still, raising taxes in his first year will make him look like a bad governor. Ars is trying to figure out how to measure that land because the people have no measuring tools. The boy decides to measure it by counting how many times the land leveling power has been used. Leveling power and soil improvement can only be used on 10 by 10 meter squares. Anyone can perform the analysis without instruments. R says he will do this and counts 1 acre of Baruch's land as one leveling of soil. Earlier during their fight with Raymond, Carl stood up, crying and shouting that it was all his fault. He said he was to blame for both the Valkyrie's injury and the boys. Still, his mother and he kept telling him it wasn't like that. From that moment on, the little boy has been trying to show he can be useful. R says they also need to choose a unit of length. The MC says the meter will be defined as the side of the land leveling, and if that meter is divided into 100 parts, each part will be called a centimeter. Now that they've fixed the length, it's easier to measure volume and height. A liter of water weighs 1 kilogram, and they can confirm that water evaporates at 100 degrees Celsius. R doesn't expect everyone to get that right away, so he prepared material and asked Carl to give it to everyone. R asks whether Carl understood all that he said. He then says he is counting on the little boy. This is how the Barucha community began using the measurement system our community was familiar with. They started analyzing the land using what we had been taught, but he had no paper. Paper is needed to record everything they are discovering. Even so, paper is very expensive, and we cannot afford to spend money right now. He remembers the forest has many trees, and that paper is made from them. He tried to make paper with magic. Despite that, he had several failures and had told us it was impossible to make paper directly from a plant. The MC won't give up after a few failures, trying boiling at higher temperatures and mixing other ingredients to test a different pulp. For this paper, he uses forest wood, recovery mana, and roots. Start by mashing the wood to break it down, then just boil it. He found that boiling it in mana potion extracts the fibers more effectively. Then combine the fibers with the pulp and boil it again. We will use forest-grown yams to make the pulp. Remove the mixture and place it between layers of cloth. then put a weight on top so the cloth soaks up the water and the pressure squeezes the paper dry. Then, in theory, he has an impressive document. Even bars can write neatly on that sheet. You can now create records for that land. Tryon is taken aback and says he wants to buy those papers from the boy. The MC mocks, saying he was the one who insisted it was simply impossible, tried to apologize and says he never thought the boy could do something so remarkable. R asks if he plans to use it or sell it, and the man says both. A thin, attractive sheet is ideal for record keeping and for sale. Though very thin, it writes perfectly, unlike other papers he has seen. The merchant says he is certain it will sell anywhere. R says if the man wants to go that far, they should boost paper production and set up a dedicated team for it. It's upsetting that the only help he can offer the families who lost someone in battle is financial compensation, and they don't even look him in the eyes. Making paper will be more suitable than making windows or running farms. That's how the mass production of paper began, with a workshop for the people. We preferred to hire the widows for the team of specialists. This paper contains mana in its composition, which is costly, but it sells very well in the cities. Still, the widows keep avoiding eye contact with them. Now the family is grateful. A young boy who lost his father watches the MC and signs to him. The MC eased the burden on families who lost their providers. R says the next step is to equip the Valkyries. Grand is excited by the idea and eager to build new equipment. The armors are impressive, but someone on our team decided to produce saddles and stirrups and asked Grant to draw a diagram. The man asks if we cannot ride without that equipment, and the boy answers yes. During his horseback fight with Raymond, he noticed how important a saddle was. After losing the battle, he was thrown off the Valkyrie. With a saddle and stirrups, he would have better support for his feet. By strengthening his body, he could have won that battle. Since saddles are easy to make, he and Beto should be able to make them. Our Grand Asif wants to form a cavalry. Speed is a decisive advantage in battle. Cavalry will likely improve its combat performance. Horned Valkyries can assist even without anyone riding them. Meanwhile, hornless Valkyries should help in battle by serving as mounts. The boy asks for something to help the Valkyries cross to the other city. Grant says he will handle it. Horseshoes have been produced. Valkyries move much faster in the forest than on the road, because on the road they carry people as loads, so they need shoes that can bear that weight. R likes how the horseshoe looks. Valkyrie is excited too. Over time, Hours noticed several things about those animals. The Valkyries he created are different from the eggs hatched by other Valkyries. Even though one is larger, their horn and magical power are the same. This demonstrates that by making a single horseshoe model, all of them can be shot. Our horse tried all kinds of horseshoes, until Valkyrie felt happy. After several tries, they found the ideal equipment for that creature. R notes there is still much to do and is already exhausted. In our previous life, we planted and ate a wide variety of foods throughout the year, but in that world, people can only eat during harvest time. R notes that even with soil improvements, it won't help, and although Baruka has a warehouse, they do nothing with the roots, so they rot. However, that will end on that day. The new warehouse will let them store food for a long time. Beto says the cube looks more like a giant block of tofu. R reacts indignantly and says it's a special building with walls almost 3 times as thick. No light or air gets in there. R begins to use magic. He hurls ice balls in every direction, while Beta asks if everything is okay. Grant asks whether the boy should rest a bit. R says a lot of ice is needed for that, and the two of them should help him fill the space. They succeed in lining the warehouse with ice. Next, cover the ice with sawdust to keep it from melting quickly. At that moment, their freezer is fully stocked. Beto complains that it's very cold there, and he knew that before electricity, people used ice boxes as freezers. Doing that for families could be a good idea. If you don't have enough power to make ice, you can buy it. You can store vegetables as well as leftover meats. This will certainly improve the current situation. Grant asks Beto why they don't build a castle there, and the boy looks confused. The man says R spends most of his days in Baruka, not in the castle north of the river. The boy says he enjoys working this way. Carlos Fontana is the only person in that castle, stationed with the minimum number of soldiers required by the peace treaty. Grand asks why they do not build another castle there. Castles show power. The boy agrees, but thinks Grand is just trying to get a chance to build something else. R notes they have just come out of a tough situation, and building a castle could create more intrigue, but it eases the transition to governor. In the last battle, everyone saw what we had as strength. Those who weren't there have no idea. This will make some people question paying taxes to a child. Our side observes that Grant is suggesting he demonstrate his power. He agrees, saying castle will be far more decorated than the other. This isn't urgent, so we plan to work step by step. The most impressive site in Baruka is the castle north of the river, but as Grant said, the boy is never there. A large castle there will make it clear who governs Baruka. R is still determined to open the market, but he is not sure if the merchants will go there. Because he can be called to battle at any moment, he must not only govern his land, but also focus on building his strength. This requires people to move to the kingdom. Ars tells Graham that building a castle alone will not be enough. His plan is to make the heart of Baruka a castle. Let's build a city around the castle. The boy noticed the walls around the land probably kept others away. Building the city without walls in a place people want to live would likely attract more people. If more people move there, merchants will follow, and the city will soon be ideal for business. People will have no trouble fighting by his side to protect their homes and treasures. Now that he is the Lord, calling people to live there only benefits him. The Baruka kingdom includes the villages of Baruka and Linda and the castle to the north. Start by improving the land between the central wall and the outer wall. To the south, where Biteau and Grand Live and Tryon runs his shop, a free market will allow people to open shops, and the freezer is there too. Still, a lot of empty space remains. We will divide the remaining land in the south and west and sell the lots to anyone who wants to live there. They only need doors and windows to be ready. Unlike the southern area, the northern part sits beside a forest where wood can be gathered, so lumberjacks and charcoal workers will want to stay there. Producing paper and growing magic mushrooms require trees, so those people should stay there. The northern lands are divided into plots to grow food for the Valkyries. The boy plans to give this area to each of his soldiers eventually. He's not ready to raise an army yet, but keeping the gate ready for people to use will make it easier for them to march when the time comes. For now, his duty is to keep the peace, and the boy thinks it would be wise to build a prison to hold those who need to be detained. We should also create a court to hear crimes, and Eris is considering handling the serious cases inside the castle while leaving minor ones to the people. He decides to build very strong brick structures between the two walls. Eris continued developing the land, focusing on building the city to the south. Impressed by what he sees, the merchant says, "It's incredible, and he has never seen a city like it." Ask if Eris gave his all to make that happen, and he said yes. The boy wonders if that city has grown bigger than Fontana. The city is divided into lodges and neatly organized with standard houses. The divider on the road between the south and east sides was well planned, and the buildings have arches and even glass windows. The boy built everything from soup-resistant bricks, a luxury material, and Eris notes he used memory preservation only on his own house to do that. Eris asks Tryon whether he thinks people from other cities will be surprised, and Tryon replies that anyone would be. Then the man asks Eris to help him get down from up there because he is scared. The boy needs to strengthen the outer wall. It can already withstand giant wild boars, but must also protect against human attacks. The boy wants to build it entirely from super-resistant bricks, but he can't cast a single spell to do it, which makes the work inefficient. 4 towers were enough for the castle to the north, but given the size of that wall, they won't be enough. Eris installs a tower every 200 meters. Ares used the memory preservation in the northern castle to build those towers. He plans to leave the wall-top defense to Biteau and Vargas, as he did at the other castle. Ares asked Grand to strengthen their defense. The man did an excellent job. If a battle breaks out in front of the wall, they can throw super-durable bricks at the attackers because mana is hard to store. Throwing bricks from up there can easily cause damage. Ares plans to get weapons soon to build a proper defense, but for now the bricks will do. He drinks another potion to restore his mana and thinks about his next move. Also build a 10-meter deep moat around the wall. They can't fill it with water like at the castle to the north, so Ares made it wider. The wall will have 4 points with gates that are drawbridges. The lumberjacks are highly skilled, so it will be ready quickly. Matic notes that limiting access to the city strengthens its defenses. If needed, they can raise the door to protect the kingdom. Meanwhile, many people are ready to shoot at the enemies. This marked the birth of the fortress city Barricania. Tryon tells Eris they don't have enough glass and asks if they can make more. Outraged, the boy wonders if even his glass supply is gone. The man notes that every building there needs glass. Also, the merchants have been buying glass instead of hard bricks. The boy says he wasn't interested in buying before and asks what changed, and you say it's because he built that city. After seeing the glass used in real buildings, they have reassessed its usefulness, and the houses in his city have become a model. Aries says he should have sold well the last time he tried. Try says the boy should restock soon because the glass business is about to take off. The merchant's opinion convinces the boy he must begin mass production. Then he should make ice production a spell. Grand meets an exhausted Aris. Claiming to be a builder, he dislikes using magic for mass production, while the boy argues the resistant bricks are convenient. Grant notes bricks and glass aren't the same, so it makes sense to use magic to make bricks since those are the materials used. You can make all kinds of things with those bricks. Glass behaves differently. In addition to windows, Aris uses glass to make cups, plates, and many other items. If he turns that into a spell, he'll probably only be able to create one thing. This will stifle creativity and prevent new inventions. The boy realizes sand and coal are the basic ingredients for glass and are easy to get, so it would be sad if they stopped making new things. Aris asked Grant to try making something new with the glass, and the man asked if he had any ideas. Mac asked him to produce lenses. Saying he wants to see if Grant can meet his expectations, the man gets quite excited. Even though the request is random, Grant's having fun. Aries takes a moment to rest while sipping tea. He hasn't enjoyed a cup of tea and some peace in a long time. Hector asks if the inner castle walls will come later, and the boy says they will. It should symbolize power and similar things, but Aris hasn't decided what to do yet. Then outside, he hears two men arguing. Recognizing the voices, Aris moves toward them. Beto and Vargas are talking. Beto explains they are discussing what to do if they go to war again, while Vargas can only talk about defense. Vargas asks Aris to tell Beto it makes no sense to charge those who are not prepared. The boy sees they're discussing battle plans. The boy decides the debate is important, so they should calm down and have a civil conversation. Ares apologizes to Hector for bothering him, but Hector shows no sign of worry. Beto's drinking tea at the table. He insists you cannot win a battle without attacking, but Vargas argues that since they can build castles, they should focus on defense. Aris understands why Beto is so obsessed with attacking. His first battle was against the Fontana family. A sinister atmosphere hung over the battlefield while people died. The MC was terrified, so he attacked without taking proper precautions. Beto apparently did the same. They beat many trained enemies, and Beto probably thinks this happened because they took the initiative and kept fighting despite everything. It was clearly a smart move for them. Although Beto is strong, he is still an inexperienced child, and Aris does not consider their victory a success. They only challenged the opponent, and he won't do that again now that he knows he's at a disadvantage. Vargas's focus on defensive protection is odd. He says they should train to use the castles to defend in battle, but Aris thinks that approach is very risky. He's just inexperienced in battle. No reinforcements will come to help them, even if they build forts and walls. Carlos Fontana's position is unstable, and he could leave Aris at any moment. They do not specialize in any type of firearm. Other knights hate them and can attack at any moment, so they must survive by their own strength. Everyone on the battlefield must stay flexible to do their best and protect the population. Everyone there must have the same authority and knowledge as the squad captain. Aris didn't answer their question, leaving Beta and Vargas confused. This is unrealistic and may be a difficult decision, but they need to choose. Now he can see what the Baruka army needs. The challenge is how they will obtain it. Determined to grow the city's economy, he still cannot ignore the army's development. Hector asks Aris if he wants to conquer territories and gain more power, but the boy says no. The MC says he only wants to fight to defend his land and his standing there. Aris's memories of his past life left him traumatized. Afraid of fighting, he doesn't want anyone to die and only wants peace. The boy says he only wants a quiet life on the farm and to eat good food. Hector is happy with that. Still, the main character thinks being a pacifist in that world is impossible, so the boy begins training and orders everyone to fire while riding Valkyries. Training to become a battlefield survival force has begun. The first step is to practice riding the Valkyries, made easier by the saddle and harness. People must use their enhanced strength to stay on the horses and will feel severe muscle pain that eases after some meditation. Those who have learned to ride move on to the next stage. Using magic while riding a horse. Using weapons while mounted on a horse is very difficult and takes a lot of practice. They start by using pebble shots until they evolve, then they master ice throwing. A major advantage is that they have many Valkyries. This is why ours chose this fighting style. He trains magical soldiers, who can ride and shoot at the target at the same time. This lets people attack while staying away from the opponent. Using this strategy, they hunted a giant boar. Our notes that a focused barrage of thrown ice should work even on the most resilient boar. The practice facing that animal went very well. Ours Valkyrie is leading the entire fleet alone, so even soldiers who aren't good riders will keep formation. Like a school of fish, a good leader makes you move as a single unit. This was his first step toward forming Barucha's magical cavalry. Grant is thrilled to have finally succeeded. He did something to the glass lenses. The boy asks if he's finished and if he hasn't fallen asleep again. Grant says he knows how to use meditation, so he's completely fine. Meditation is a kind of magic that only works when you're asleep, so it probably didn't help at all. It's unclear whether it produces a gentle effect even on someone who is awake. R tells them to test it at the top of the tower. Binoculars that let you see distant objects using multiple lenses to refract light. R only has a vague understanding of how this works, so he can't duplicate it with magic. Still, you can see everything from up there. Even R sees his mother hanging laundry. The boy says Grand did very well. The man says he never does anything half-heartedly. The main character is glad Grand went back to Baruka. A cheerful Carl tells us it's snowing. The boy says that makes sense and it will probably be cold that day, so they should have something warm to drink. R no longer believed he could find any time to rest, and the year ended with Carl never asking him for anything unreasonable. Although summoned several times, the Baruka army was never sent into direct combat. There is a huge, splendid road and a gigantic fortification far larger than the enemy base. They can build excellent roads that lead straight to the rebels' bases. They can build 10-meter-high forts at key strategic points. As the number of troops in the fortress increased every day, most of the enemy surrendered. Although there were exceptions, Carlos Fontana handled those troops. Because of the roads they built, each time they are summoned, Fontana's structure grows stronger. Ars even asked Carlos Fontana to revoke the tolls, because doing so would let people move more freely and could boost profits. Carlos Fontana looked at us as if he were annoyed that the boy's requests never ended. Because of that, Fontana is doing much better than before. In winter, the flow of goods and the serving of summons slow down. Heavy snow blankets the region, so residents spend their days as if hibernating. Ours says it is very cold. He complains that he'd like to warm up in a hot bath. My younger brother says it will apparently warm ours, but it's a strange wish. Busy organizing the city, the MC forgot how good a bath feels, since managing the whole territory is exhausting. The Valkyrie knocks on the window and calls to the boy. Ars steps outside and asks what it is. He wants to find out what the Valkyrie wants. Toward what looks like a hot spring, Valkyrie discovered it while returning from the war with Fontana. She brought him there after hearing the boy complain about the cold. His Valkyrie is very clever. The boy dips his feet in the water because jumping in fully would leave him frozen when he comes out. He's surprised because a hot spring there would likely attract people. Ars snatches the Valkyrie and runs to the city. He asks Vargas for permission to use a piece of open land in the neighboring village. The man asks why he is in such a hurry and says he can use it, but wants to know what R plans to do. He plans to reroute the river's hot water to Linda's village. Vargas thinks an inn with hot baths could attract several guests. He will pass the idea on to the village. Depending on where you place it, the water may be nearly bubbling. As a result, he will divert everything directly from the spring. Using his magic, our search is grounded. Connect to a sturdy pipe that links to the water source with a filter at the end. Next, he installs another sloped pipe to carry the water to the village while keeping its temperature. All that's left is to finish the spring and village structures, and everything will be fine. That's how people imagine R, but all he managed to create was a strange pool. Allowing untrained farmers to do that was a mistake. Now we only need to build the lodging next to the pool. The water is coming in perfectly, even though they can't control the temperature. To maintain hygiene, our team connected that pool to the pit, filling the pit with dirty water and replacing the hot water. Ars's brother says boiling a bucket of water would have been faster since he wanted a bath. He can't see why it takes so much work to bring hot water to the city. R says the hot springs usually bring a vitality that ordinary hot water can't provide. The child asks whether meditation already solves that problem, and our side is bothered that he uses valid arguments. It now looks like he's just a strange man forcing several people to work so he can take a bath. But the main character wants his brother to think he's cool. As he lies down to sleep, Hours can't get this out of his head and sees no benefit in the hot water. All he wanted was for his little brother to think he was impressive. R builds a huge space. Vargas asks whether it's made of glass and solid bricks and what Hours plans to do. The boy announces something amazing and says he has been planning it for a long time, even though he only thought of it last night. We built a kind of greenhouse because he wanted to make planting work even in winter. They even tried making a smaller one before, but failed. The glass doesn't keep the cold out. During the day, when the sun was out, it was fine, but at night the temperature inside matched the temperature outside. That has now changed. Ours will use water to keep the greenhouse warm. Impressed, Vargas is asked by Ours to tell the villagers they can try growing something there. If this works, the winter food shortage will be solved. That's how our group ended up building a hot spring and a greenhouse in the village of Linda, both unheard of in that world. Ours thanks Valkyrie, saying her help lets them do more during winter. The boy is very happy that she emerged from the egg he hatched. His Valkyrie is truly remarkable. Those creatures can run even while carrying adult men. They have mastered the same magic he can use and have far more mana than common farmers. A hot spring has been found, and the Valkyrie's list of traits keeps growing since they resist temperature changes. Valkyries can enter the hot spring without trouble and run easily in freezing winter. They are animals that can live anywhere. R is hugging the Valkyrie, and the merchant asks what the kid is doing. They'll be leaving soon. We see this as a great opportunity because movement is usually limited in winter. The main rule of business is to do what others won't. So they collected what they had managed to grow in the greenhouse. They will take it to Fontana and sell it. Those things used to taste horrible and rarely sold, but now everything is different. People want to buy as much as possible. Eating fresh vegetables in winter is uncommon. Winter is harsh around the world. People can starve, and sometimes they take steps to reduce the number of mouths to feed. The eldest son is often forced to leave home and dies on the street. Only the rich do not have to worry about food or winter. The crowd keeps wanting more products, even after supplies are gone. Authorities trying to calm the population say they will return the next day. The men and women wonder if he will still have that fresh food. Ours tells them not to worry because Baruka has plenty of food. Hatsuka sells incredibly well in winter. Ours is happy because he imagines himself as Santa Claus with his reindeer. He found a way to earn far more money with Hatsuka than he ever imagined. City of Fontana and City of Carlos Fontana. This is our first project as Lord of Barricania. They did it to follow the New Year customs of that land. All knights must find the lord who assigned them at the start of the year, so Ours went to Fontana Castle. In the Lord's Hall, everyone knelt before him. Being a novice, Ours had to wait and was the last to see Carlos Fontana. Dinner starts the party. People gossiped trying to figure out how Raymond lost to Ours, since the boy is only a child. They are outraged that Ours is succeeding in his land and question why the Lord allowed that child a place. A person's family should not determine if they become a knight, but in practice, most knights come from knightly families. Those at that party are bourgeois, privileged figures, not ordinary farmers. R stood alone. Appointed personally by Carlos Fontana, he is the only one he chose, and still no one wants to stand by his side. Many are outraged, saying Ours can easily set up camps in the blink of an eye and likely gets help from other nobles. Even though he says those absurd things, no one dares confront Ours because of his achievements. Growing bored, the boy channels mana into his eye to see people's auras. That makes it easy to tell them apart. The boy notices that people who seem to have fought battles have slightly better mana. They likely refined their mana while fighting. On the other hand, previous partners of Ryman had neither high-quality mana nor much of it. R observes that asking Bateau to add managed training to the menu would be a good idea. Something suddenly draws our attention. He wants to know who she is. Though she looks like she's never been in a battle, her mana is the strongest he's ever encountered. Most knights' mana covers their whole bodies, but hers does not. Ours speaks to her and asks if he may have a moment. The girl turns around, wondering what she can do for him. All of her mana is concentrated in her head. She doesn't know whether she is doing that intentionally or unconsciously. He grows very agitated and asks for her name and where she lives. He says he wants to know everything about her, while she asks for some space. Ars explains he doesn't want to do anything wrong and is simply very interested in her. Someone is approaching. Carlos Fontana tells Ars that it must feel great for him to be free to flirt with women on New Year's. He jokes that we meet women before we meet him. As the saying goes, great men have great desires. Ars says he didn't call her because she's a woman, but because he found something interesting about her. Carlos Fontana notes the boy is thinking about Lilina. He tells the girl to show Ars into a room and stay with him. She tries to argue. But he says the girl spends every day just reading books. This is a good chance to entertain one of his guests. Ars is eager to talk to her. He apparently put her in a very difficult position. When they gather, someone from our group asks how Lilina knows Carlos Fontana. The boy says he's asking because he noticed the man looks worried about her. The girl says they are blood relatives, and our character is shocked they are siblings. He says they acted like strangers at the party. Then Lilina explains Carlos Fontana was born to the Lord's wife. Meanwhile, she was born to one of the maids. This means they are half-siblings. Our notes they share the same hair, but she lacks Carlos's ambitions and seems quiet and reserved. Carlos Fontana also strikes him as very impressive to look at. Lilina's beauty is otherworldly. Ar thinks for a moment and asks why the girl is carrying trays if she is the Lord's sister, and she replies that noble women must entertain guests. People usually carry trays as children to learn good manners, but she spent her whole life cooped up reading books. Unable to handle the situation, Carlos Fontana told her to entertain the guests for New Year's, which was inappropriate because she was only 16 and couldn't manage it. Lilina glances down and asks what Hours wants to know. The boy explains he was watching the Mona of people at the party and noticed the girl's Mona was all concentrated in her head, and she looked confused. Ars asks who taught her to do that, but the girl says no one. She has never heard that mana can differ between body parts. Ars says that concentrating mana in one part of the body increases its power. Bito strengthens his entire body by covering it with mana, while Vargas concentrates mana on his surface to boost his defense. Increasing mana in the mind should improve memory, judgment, and information processing. Memory preservation works the same way. Lilina does that without realizing it. The MC notices her mana is even higher quality than the other guests. It might be an innate talent or the result of her reading a lot, and he wonders what kind of books she reads. She says the books are large and complex and much harder than ordinary stories, so it takes time to read and understand even a single book. Since scrolls are already long, books are even worse. On reflection, the letters claiming noble rights are full of fluff and long sentences. He can read a little, but if asked to read a classic without a dictionary, it wouldn't make sense. The boy asks Lilina to explain what that book is about in simple words. She pointed out there are history books, yet he doesn't even know that world's history. For example, he wants to know why the royal family that once gathered all the nobility declined so much.